Power Project family, how's it going? Today we have Graham Tuttle, aka the Barefoot Sprinter, on the podcast once again. He moved here last year. It's a super training gym, and he's been doing a lot of stuff with us, but we go in on the feet today and a lot of other stuff, but obviously we talk a lot about feet. And also, why am I holding this baby? Because the Power Sandal is back in stock. We sold out of these last year thanks to you guys. It's the Barefoot Sandal we made in partnership with Shama Sandals. So head to Power Project Live to check them out. Goes up to size 14 for you Bigfoot guys, and enjoy the episode.
Yep, off the list. You're off the list.
Uninvited.
Graham Tuttle, how you doing, buddy?
It couldn't be better. It's a beautiful rainy day in Northern California.
What's been going on? We haven't had you on in a while. And how you doing?
So, since this time a year ago, I, fell in love with one of the people that works for you and moved out here, and just
well, that happened fast.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well,
you move quick.
I do. It's the sprinter thing. Just see what happens, sprint in direction, and then move past it.
Sprint right in some pussy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know.
Blindsided you.
Where's the mug?
And you're doing jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah. So let's just say the last year's been very humbling. I think a big reason I wanted to expand. Had some opportunities come up. Most of the business was online, and to come out and hang out with you, beautiful people, and realize that you don't want to be. Well, I didn't want to be a big fish in a small pond, and so moved out. Just the people that come in and out of this place, and also being able to travel and meet a lot of people. Very humbling. So I mean, just starting jiu-jitsu. I've got 58 classes and notched on the old bedpost.
Fuck yeah, that's a big deal.
It's you're rolling with Nsima is
impossible.
It's he doesn't wear a rash guard, so when he doesn't look at you, he just looks elsewhere. His eyes.
I'll look at you.
I don't know if I want that actually, but
I do look at you though sometimes.
Just on occasion, it's like but he just goes in and he starts moving, and he uses his body weight to press into you into this large.
Slowly press into you. Let's just press.
Convex cleavage of masculine.
What encouraged you to try jiu-jitsu?
So, this is an interesting
cleavage. How many people are? Oh God!
I mean, it's an experience. It's something else. Well, and this is the thing. It's funny because I hear people talk at class like, "Oh, did you compete? You do this?" And I realize, oh, this is a sport just like tennis. Like, I want to go and play tennis, and we just practice the drill, and then we play back and forth. And I'm like, oh, that's what people do here. I want to be more confident. So I thought a lot about this because I was pretty soft as an individual, just emotionally. I didn't really have a lot of challenges growing up, and a lot of the people that seem to do great things have very difficult things. Take David Goggins' life, and then the opposite of that, it was me. It's okay, so you never got in a fight. There's a lot of this deep down didn't feel very confident. My girlfriend could still beat me up, so I mean, I'm still working on it. She's
it's because you let her.
Yeah. Well,
I like it.
I was gonna say you're into it.
Don't tell her that, but I play hard to get. But there's something about it where it's I feel personally as a man identifying as one, I feel like there's something about being able to physically defend yourself or do something.
Yeah,
and
for real.
So my sole purpose of jiu-jitsu is to feel more confident about myself, which has definitely worked because, I mean, even within the first 4 classes, if I were to go in from 0 to 4, it was just, there's a different poise. Oh, you're going to do the thing. Okay, I'm not totally just taken aback. And now the hard part is that if you go and think you're going to get this boost, I forget, who said it was Hodja Gracie, which is another name I can't say.
Hodja Gracie.
Hodja Gracie.
Yeah, there you go. You just said it.
Yeah, there you go. But he was saying that someone made the comment that every time you get better at jiu-jitsu, the people you're doing it with are also getting better. So it's not running or lifting weights where it's I got 10 pounds stronger. It's I got 10% better, but you got 10% better. And so I still feel like I still feel like every time I finish, I'm I got beat up, and I was, but there's something about physically being roughed up that feels, I don't know, good in a weird way. And it's something you come out you get not rashes, but when you call it, when you rub on your
rash guard.
Gi burn.
Yeah, they get that and walk away. It's or a black eye, and Nsima's give me a black eye.
Black guy?
before.
I'm joking. You said black eye.
Black guy gave me a black eye.
A little bit like Fight Club.
I want to ask you two this. You and Andrew, since you guys are like in this zone where you both recently started, because it's been a while since I felt what you're talking about right now. But
large cleavage rubbing in your face.
But what type of difference has happened with you guys mentally? Because when you start jiu-jitsu, if you're going to a place with a lot of good upper belts, you're going to consistently just get beat up by almost every single person you choose to roll with, right? Because almost everyone's better than you, and then you go back and you get more of it done, right? How has that changed you guys in any way?
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I'm not looking at everybody and, sizing everyone up and being like, oh, I could probably take that guy. I could probably take that guy. But like in the situation where we were in the mall and some crazy guy came up to me and my family, I was able to kind of be like chill and calm and understand that like if shit did get a little bit weird, like there's no way this out of shape guy can do anything to me. So that having the confidence of just like being in close quarters with other bigger, stronger men that are like better at grappling than me, and then realizing like, whoa, these guys are actually the very, very, very like small minority of the population. So like when I'm out and about, like I do feel a little bit more confident, like exactly what you were just saying. Whereas before I didn't have that. I don't know how I would have reacted before jiu-jitsu. I think I would have probably more of like tried just like, oh, let's get away instead of like, you need to stop. Being able to have that confidence to tell somebody like, stop. You're being rude right now, or I forgot exactly what I said. But that's the first thing that comes to mind right there. Again, I'm not like, oh, I know jiu-jitsu so I could take anybody out. I'm not looking for a fight.
Yeah.
But in that moment where shit got a little real, I was able to just stay calm and suppress the whole situation where nothing happened. And thank goodness nothing happened. I would have rather had that more than, oh, dude, I took some dude down in the wall. I'm like, fuck no. There's no way I would want that to happen.
That's awesome. So it's been interesting because I think, do you think I could tell the story about the butt slap story? Do you think I could save that for a different time, but
Just don't say the name.
Yeah, just don't say the name. Yeah, go ahead.
there's been two things I've learned, and one is that it's like this last year has been so humbling because like you get around people who are so smart. Like I've got to meet some of the smartest coaches, some of the best things, and you kind of like you have this like. I had a lot of undeserved self-esteem about like, I'm good. And you imagine the world to be this like perfectly soft, healthy, wonderful place where everyone's nice. But there's a lot of like, it's like, oh, they wouldn't rob my car. People like you, and there's it's a balance between thinking like the best of people and also realizing that there's like an animalistic nature in a sense. And there's been a lot of realizing in a sense that you like physically, like things can hurt. Like if you've never been punched before, it's like, okay, you realize you go and you roll and it's like, oh, it's fun. This is a guy who I have nothing but respect for. I absolutely love this guy. And so, going into class one day, I walk in and saying hi and I just slap him on the butt. Like, hey man, I slap him on the butt and give him a hug. Cause like, a little bit like, that's just, I don't, maybe.
In the Graham Tuttle way.
It was like the most loving thing I just like, hey man, like, what's up?
Locker room stuff, yeah.
Let me ask you this. How long have you known him before that?
This is like for first 12 classes. But he had shown me, we had done the technique like a week before, and I was like, he's my friend. Fresh are friends, not food. Like that kind of thing. I was like, this is gonna be great. And so I'm like, oh, I can tell a little bit. He goes, like that, just a little. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, whatever. So
the butt slap wasn't the most comfortable thing for him.
I suppose not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we go, and later on, I'm like, hey, you want to roll? So like basically, for those who don't know, because that would have been me like a year ago, you do like the warm up for 15 minutes, and you do like 30 or 40 minutes of technique, and then you roll, and they do like 6-minute rolls, or at least at Cassio's gym, they do 6-minute rolls, and you do like 6 rounds. So you kind of like, it's like, if I could have the skill now, I could go back to high school and ask Indy Girl to dance. Because now it's you walk up, hey, you want to roll with me? And it's like, it's no different. But they'll go like, hey, you want to roll with me? And I'm telling you, I have never been I'm talking smothering. Like there's the thing where you grab the gi, which is like these fancy pajamas, and you like pull in and he put his knee in there for 6 minutes. I am like, I can't breathe. I am just dying. And I'm like I can't, he taps and then immediately going back into it. And like I tapped like 6 times. It was like 4 or 6 times in 6 minutes. And it was oppressive. I was like, oh my, like I've never felt so like smashed before. In a second.
Also, I mean, obviously the man didn't injure you. He did this in a very nice way, but he smothered the fuck out of you.
Yeah. So, but I'm like,
Was there like weird energy too?
I could just tell that this is like, this man's going to murder me or something. I
He
didn't
wanted
think
to make sure not only did he not get slapped on the ass again, he did it for all the other men there too.
I suppose so. So, the moral of the story, if there is one. So we finish, and I was like, and I'm like crawling the next thing. I think I'll go roll with Nsima next, which is a great thing because my heart rate's through the roof, and I'm like, can't breathe. And Nsima's like, just calm down, bro. Every time, there's nothing that makes me feel worse than like I'm dying. And he goes, your breathing is too heavy. Relax. Your breathing is well, you're on top of me, okay? It's not easy.
You're really good. I'm not. This is hard. I can't fucking breathe.
You hurt my feelings.
Oh God. I remember that day.
Where's my mommy? This is the whole time. You're breathing too, Harvey. Just relax. Just relax. I'm like, you weigh 250 pounds. Anyways, so I get, told that. And so then at the end, I'm like, hey man, everything okay? You just seemed a little upset. And he goes, and this is, so there's a moral, but he goes, to be honest, I didn't appreciate when you slapped my ass. He goes, he's dead serious. I'm like, oh, I meant that in the most kind, loving way possible. And so, but like the point is, he talked about it and he was straight up, and that was it. Like literally, he did something. I did something he didn't like, and as a little white belt walking in, it's like I'm a little bushy-tailed, bright-eyed, freshman. It's like I don't deserve. Like there's a pecking order that you earn your way into to be able to have a relationship, and that was a good eye-opener.
That it would have been okay if you bought him dinner.
You know what? At that point, I was like, yes, sir, no, sir, please.
Yeah.
I have another. And so, I walked away and I was like, that was one of the most valuable lessons I've ever gotten, because it's like the world, like you go and
you don't know him. You don't know him that well.
Exactly.
It's just a guy that you see at Jiu Jitsu, and
and
you
so
took a liberty with that.
And so, but within that, it's like everything. If you go out and surfing, like you will get. I didn't even get on the board, but like I've been in the ocean for 4 hours trying to surf, and you get smacked. And there's a lot of this like kind of uninformed naivety that I walk into, which is, part of my charm and, affect. But at the same time, like it puts you at a place where you are liable to like not see the reality of what's happening. And so that was one of the most humbling things, where it's like, hey, you have to you have to like show up and be able to like, walk the walk in a sense. And so, we talked about it in the week after that. We just were able to flesh it out. And like I've rolled with him multiple times since. Nothing but love and respect for this guy. Like it's one of the most valuable things.
Yeah,
I've
he
ever
loves
heard.
you. He loves you.
But I'm telling you, that was like, so in that sense, there was a, like being around people that are just really world-class or really skilled or just have experience beyond what you've done. Like that's been my experience this last year, which just reinforces the fact that there's like, you may think you know a lot, but you just don't know. Like you don't even know what you don't know. And so there's like, there's a lot of that, I don't know, like informed knowledge and knowing at this point. So that's been one piece, which is like you go in and it's a lot like surfing. Is I don't have to go in, like I go in and someone else is going to impose their will in a sense. So it's like being able to like hold and not just yield so quickly. Like one of the lessons, and this is the other part, the thing that's been helpful for me, and I don't know if this is just how I'm wired, but I tend to like find a deeper metaphysical reason for everything. I'm a very good meaning-making thing, even if there's no reason whatsoever. Very good at telling stories. But you always say this too. It's like kind of relax. And Aaron Alexander, this is the statement that it's, I'm like 2 notches above chill. And there's like a little bit of like, everyone's like, relax. It's like you hold tension. And I like now having kind of done it for a little while, I can say if I roll against like Julian or you or some of the higher belts, I'm like, oh, there's just like there's this soft yet like testing yielding. Like they're moving and they're letting you do the stuff, but the second there's like they can immediately firm up. And Kador Ziani was here last week, and he embodied this in a way that I've never seen before. Like the man, he's talking about the tables, like you trust your bones in a sense. And so he laid.
If you guys haven't, because it'll come out right before this, but we did a kind of in-gym podcast with Kador, and he kind of explained some of the things you're about to mention here. So if you guys haven't, check that out.
Yeah, no, but YouTube only type of thing.
YouTube only.
That fucking guy's so strong too.
Well, and that's the thing is that like, so I kind of had the way I visualized it was like, if you look at like a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is like maximal, like contracted, like tensile, like plyometric, like hit the ground, like I'm max sprinting. And then 1 would be like completely chill, relax, asleep. I realize like I tend to, I think most people do, but like if that chill, like I'm here, I'm relaxed. It's like maybe
the term heart rate variability. You have this variability within your body to go from being super strong or fast or explosive to being totally loose and relaxed.
Yeah. And so like I tend to let's say chill is like necessary, maybe like a 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 on that. But it's like I kind of float between like 4 to 6, where like because I'm kind of always a little bit of tension and like I hold that in my spine, like deep core muscles, and like I'm never just fully just that like chill in a sense. And I watched him, he just laid on his side, just laid down and just sank. And it was as though every essence of tension in his body melted. And the man just like, it's like when you look, not so much dogs, because I think dogs are domesticated at the point, but like cats, if you look at like a big cat and you see the way they just kind of like, they walk and their shoulder blade sticks back and it's like their skin, but then the second they flex, it's like, but I seen that. So that the other part is like, you just can't outforce. Like there's just things like, for example, like you go and you see a blue belt that like there are a lot of tension and like you could just feel like I can feel like we tap bump the knuckles and then we go and I'm like I can just feel that you're like uncertain, nervous, and you're gonna try and hurt me because you don't know what to do. And it's like there's a little bit of that. I'm like okay, here we go. All right, but you know like that piece of just being able to relax, because what I think is valuable about that, and this is kind of the sprinting thing, is that you know, I've done a lot of the strength training and work on the stuff, and it's like there's something that feels like there's a block in terms of my capacity to do elastic, explosive, athletic things. And so I look at Kador, and he, you know, can go from like the most relaxed, just completely present and fully trusting the environment to the next second jumping, kicking something, a basketball out of the rim, in a sense. And so like, it just seems to me that the more you can learn to kind of trust that bone, so to speak, then you can also increase the contractile, like fascial tension, where he just like hits the ground and like pops. And you probably have seen that in the Maasai tribe. There's like very skinny African kids in the red garb that like hit the ground,
and they're just like fucking springs.
And
I'll see if I can find that.
It's oh my god!
Type in African.
I know.
Type in Africans jumping.
I'll look for it in the text there because that one
Maasai,
was really, really
Massai,
good.
yeah. But when you see that there's something
it's
about
effortless.
this, there's one clip where like there's this white like, and it looks like a trainer or like a tour, like a.
That's the one I'm looking for.
Like a tourist or something.
He goes and jumps and he sees moving his arms, and I keep going back to this thing is like, you know, what I'm inspired to do. And so a lot of the guys that it seems that are successful in terms of like the hybrid athletes and doing this stuff, there's like maybe 2 categories. There's the grinding and David Goggins, like, and you know, Fergus and all these guys who have like, I could literally name off 10 if I could remember names, but they can, there's like the not quitting thing where they just keep going and going and going. And that's not easy by any means. It's like a whole different level, but there's something about that, like the human effort to just, you know what, do you want to run a marathon? Well, like the only way to get home is go 26 miles. And people are like, all right, we're going to do that. Right. Yeah. That one. It's just like the legs, they're bounding, and it's like the ground is made out of something and they can't even control it. Like, and this is me, but probably a little bit better than me.
I think that's also probably most of us.
Yeah. And so that's what I go, and you know, I don't know. It's a hypothesis. I have no idea how to like, well, I have some ideas, but I do think that the way to get to that is to be more like Kador and just this like trusting in a sense, because they're having fun, they're playing, they're not even using their arms.
This is something I've had kind of a theory on for quite some time, is this strength to weight ratio being like probably the most important thing when it comes to health, and it's never really talked about. But it's kind of why like there's some power lifters that are pretty heavy, but they can still live a long, prosperous life and have kind of higher levels of body fat.
Yeah,
it's not the healthiest thing in the world, but their strength to their weight ratio is still intact. But when that gets compromised because your joints get messed up, or just, you know, kind of old age or inactivity or something like that, that's when you're really screwed. So people still need to pay attention to their weight, but I think your strength to weight ratio really lies at the bottom of, or the top of, just supreme health.
Yeah. So, but that's where it gets to the jiu-jitsu has been a valuable lesson, is like, you know, one of the first changes that happened in a sense, and I do realize that in some sense the contractile compressive forces I generate in jiu-jitsu may be counterproductive to this. I don't know. It's just one big hypothesis. But I think that it doesn't have to be. I think that's part of it. Like, it teaches you to relax in a sense, because when you were under a 250.
By the way, check this out. This is Darius Clark.
Oh.
He's a dunker, but look like...
He's still like squatting a little bit more than they were, but he also, who knows how high.
It looks like he's squatting because he bends the knees when he comes up.
One observation here, though, is that this guy seems to be quite a bit heavier.
Yeah, he is.
You know what I mean? Like, he probably weighs 30 pounds more. But yeah, look at the way he can. Remember DK Metcalf? You guys seen that video where he catches the ball? They like throw the ball way over his head.
Oh yeah,
What the fuck was that about?
I thought that was a fake video.
I thought it was too. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
Oh,
I think
maybe it was. I don't know.
because it looks amazing. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it wasn't like half or like a
Yeah,
70%
I
real, but
understand.
so one of the things you look how high his calf, like his the length of his Achilles and that like tendon. It's like there's this like small calf belly, but because it's leveraged up higher, and I do
Right.
wonder.
there's a term we have for that, black man calves.
Well, then
'Cause,
you
like,
look at
black-
the opposite.
Like a lot of like if you look at basketball players and even a lot of black athletes, you'll see that they
Like
do
a
have
high
higher
calf insertion,
high
yeah.
calf insertions. Yeah, just a genetic thing.
And
So
the
Maybe
opposite
it
of that
makes
would
for
be-
like a longer tendon or something.
Yeah, and
right?
more of the force. And so then you look at the opposite, which would be like a cankle. Like it's a lot of the powerlifters walk in, and it's like their calf. It is a thick tree trunk in a sense. And
Hey,
There
you're
was
right.
a famous I'm gonna get fired too, but there was a famous
why is that
there was a
offensive?
famous sports celebrity guy that was trying to say that he thought that black people had an extra muscle or extra tendon in their leg.
He got fired
that's-
for that.
yeah, well,
That's so sad.
it was like I don't know, probably 30 years ago. I think it's
Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah,
the
yeah.
Greek. He may have said something else. That was
He probably phrased it in a
he may have said something. Yeah, we might have
was there
said
an
something
N-word
worse
in there?
than that. I don't believe so, but who knows?
But ultimately,
But some
I
people do have
yeah.
actually like weird extra
Some-
muscles.
But there's
Right,
a popliteus, which is like 30% of the population has that muscle in the calf, which, I don't know, I could see mixing your crossfire, not that, crossing your hairs, whatever. Skip that. Edit that one out. But I do wonder, it's like in some capacity, because I want to be like, I want to work on the skills that you can either, you can't do. Like, for example, like I really want to be able to be competitive at a 400-meter sprint. And that doesn't happen from just like, there's a change in my body that has to happen. And so in some sense, the lesson I'm learning from jiu-jitsu is like when you're under a 250-pound Nigerian king, it's just like, you have to move. Like there's this ribs kid. I know Andrew had this too. Like the ribs and like this deep core musculature for starting to get some motion in the spine, just being under pressure and rolling and moving. It was weeks.
Let's actually go into that real quick because again, both of you guys are. It's so great the position you're in, being so new, because there are certain growing pains when it comes to jiu-jitsu that like I don't remember, and I think a lot of new people in the audience who are starting jiu-jitsu can probably relate. So, what are some of the things that you've noticed that like are weird pains, changes that are happening in your body, ways that you've had to adjust so that you could improve?
Well, I've got hair growing in places now. My voice is getting deeper, and I think my testicles have dropped a little bit. But
They got a little bit bigger. No, the same thing that we both had at like very similar times too. No,
Yeah.
it was like I thought it was like at first a rib thing because I felt it in the front, but then as it like started, I don't know what happened. It started to go away, and then all of a sudden it was just stuck in the back. Anytime I just simply laying down on the bed, it was like, oh, like this is actually this hurts.
Did breathing hurt?
Breathing, not like
sneezing,
sneezing
coughing.
and coughing. Absolutely. Breathing was like pretty chill unless I like really tried to be like dramatic with it to get it to hurt. I was trying so many different things. I was rolling on my stomach. I was rolling on my back. That hook thing that we have here worked really well. I was able to really dig in there. Kelly Surratt was telling me some yeah, there you go. Thank you. Kelly Surratt was telling me to do a couple of different things. Nothing was really working though. And it was very frustrating. I'm like, I need to figure this out. Like
But then it just went
stretching.
away?
So I took a full month off of like live rolling. I just did drills, which was very hard. It was probably harder than actual freaking rolling because you have to be pretty disciplined to wake up early and go do that, knowing that you're not going to have that much fun. Well, it's all fun, but
I know what you mean.
the real fun is like, when you get to do technique and then you get to practice it. So that was really tricky, but I took a whole month off of like having another, man on top of me, compressing me and me like, being tense and trying to push someone off.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of dissipated and went away.
Yeah.
And then it started to come back and then I got sick. So I took another week off and then thankfully it hasn't come back since then. I think it's just the combination of being so tight and like having everything compressed because we're used to powerlifting where it's like and go. And so I would do that. And then what happened is like it felt like nothing popped, but it felt like a balloon popped, like where it's like too much pressure and it's like, dude, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then of course the new experiences of being on my side and my knee like to my chin while trying to push, like, all these weird new positions that I had never experienced before.
You know what's interesting real quick? And we're all going to be, you guys, if you have more, Andrew, go on it. But the ability, like Graham was mentioning, to relax. But like you were mentioning, when you're lifting in the gym, the whole messaging is always, okay, get tight, go down, up. When you're deadlifting, get tight. Everything's get tight. When you get into jiu-jitsu, you don't want to be flexing when somebody's on top of you. You don't want to be flexing your core. You don't want to be flexing your core when you have someone's knee on your belly. You kind of want to relax a little bit. And if you've never done that, obviously most people have never done that before, never been in those situations, you can see how much distress would be in your rib cage. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because yesterday Mason did this takedown on me. And the takedown, we ended up being midair, and then all his weight just slammed down on top of my body. And he was like, sorry. I'm like, no, you're good. But I was like, wait up. I just got like slammed. And like we were midair and his whole body just came and popped me on the ground. But we just popped right back up. The reason, and I was like, damn, that actually didn't hurt at all. But it didn't hurt because we're both used to handling somebody else's force and dissipating that force. Like I can fall and break fall and dissipate the force evenly through my body, so it's not just all in here, right? That's something you learn how to do. And when you were talking, I was like, oh shit, that's why that shit didn't hurt.
That's wild. So yeah, like, again, with like lower back issues or whatever, I'm always taught like, oh, stay tight so that way it doesn't like dislodge it and go like a weird uncomfortable position. So I've always been like, but the analogy that I had talked to you about over the phone, it was like, you guys ever try to like as well whatever age, like try to break a tree branch that's like super healthy and like green? Like you can bend the fuck out of that and it's not gonna break. But if it's a dry and old brittle branch, it just snaps right away. And so that's kind of like how I feel like you need to be like the healthy green branch as opposed to the stern, stiff, like dry branch. Because that one, obviously, thankfully I didn't crack anything, but like it put me out for a month and that sucked. Yeah. Because I found something that I loved and I couldn't do it. And I was like, God, I can't wait to get back. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, if you have to think about it, it's already a problem. It's probably already too late. If you're thinking, oh shit, I need to relax, like someone that's proficient, they probably don't even... probably be very, very rare that they're thinking that they need to relax. And if they did, then that probably meant somebody pushed them to a point where they weren't relaxed. Right.
You know what's interesting? And Graham, don't forget what you're about to say. There are some people, like I've rolled with upper belts, who still haven't gotten the handle on being able to relax when they roll. I've rolled with people who are upper belts that they're still like this because maybe no one's ever talked to them about that. And you can go through and you can get a black belt.
Maybe it's worked for them.
Maybe
they haven't run into the right person or something.
They definitely
take them out.
That's the thing though. They have but the thing is, no one. Maybe some people like you. There are some people you see like fucking Mika Gavao, Kanan Duarte, this guy Tynan Dalpra. You see the way they move; they're so flowy. They can just move and swirl into different positions. But there are other people that they're just so jerky or whatever, and they're not relaxed. That like, they've advanced because they've been doing it for such a long time, but they don't move nearly as well as these other guys because they don't know how to relax. So the interesting thing is, you can progress and get a black belt without ever learning the concept of being able to kind of just let your body flow.
Well, I think so there's two parts of that, which is there's the therapy part of like, I think that's what he's talking about, the jiu-jitsu is like being like just physically enmeshed in like, I have to survive this moment. And like, that is very healing when you get out of that. You're like, oh, that's what you really miss. Like the fun part is like, okay. And then you finish 40 minutes later and you're like, everything just feels like right about the world in a sense. And the other side is like, I think the relaxes, there's the belief side, like I don't know, you call it the spiritual side, but like the intangible side of just like a physical knowing, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then there's also the practice that you have to do to see that come through to fruition. I think that's the hard part, is like they've probably been told that, but like this posture of like contraction and tension it's like an outward facing posture. It's like everything around the world. Like I don't feel safe, therefore I have to hold on to like whatever it is. Like if I'm tense, it's because I don't trust to be able to relax into this moment in a sense. And so it's hard to do when you're at a high, like someone is actually pressed, like as Mark's saying, like if you're at a point, like by the time you have to remind someone, it's already too late for them to have heard that. But if they take that and sit with it, this is the thing I think valuable, because I'm very much similar. I don't know if it's just getting the tissue to move in there or like it's a response of just the pressure, just taking time off. But it's always worked out. Like if I traveled or went away for a week or something like that, I was like, I didn't worry. Like I've just done 2 times a week for the last, 8-10 since it started in May last year, but like 2 times a week is every time I've been here. And if I travel, I didn't worry about it. And it almost always linked up to like traveling. I was like, oh, okay. Like that thing just went away because I just didn't push it. I've seen some guys that were going to go in there, going to go every day and go push it. And then like they disappear after a month or two. And it's like, so I think there's something to be said for that because while you can understand the lesson, it takes time for you to put that in. And it's not just do it in jiu-jitsu. I think there's a lot of this, like, are you forcing everything? Are you mad about it? Are you
breathing?
Yeah, there's the breathing, but it's like you think about what it is that sets your breathing. It's like your intention sets your attention. Your attention sets your breathing sets your physiology. So what you intend on, meaning I go into, if I have no intention, then whatever just gets my fight or flight thing is going to like, okay, and I'm stressed, and my stress sets my breathing sets my physiology, so I get tense.
Yeah, that's true. But like for most people who aren't adept at breathing through their nose when it comes to a lot of this, the intention will have to be, I am going to breathe through my nose for these sessions. I'm going to have to be concentrating on that, even when things get bad, because that's not a natural thing. So like for a while, you're gonna have to keep your eye on your breathing until it becomes something that you can do passively. And that relaxed breathing will then inform the way that you moved in more of a relaxed way. Not totally, but it will make a difference going like versus that makes a huge difference.
Have either one of you guys done a contact sport before?
I'm telling you, I'm soft. I'm as white as the pale and
Andrew?
fresh and soft as the day comes.
No, not even football. Like just soccer, basketball, baseball.
Yeah, it's
I did one season football, but
it's rare unless you're in some sort of contact sport, and you don't even get that much of it when you're in certain sports. It depends on what you're in, but you obviously get a large dosage of it from something like wrestling or jiu-jitsu. Your breathing is going to be compromised because it's a sport, and the sport is very difficult. Everybody knows how much conditioning wrestlers do, like collegiate wrestlers and high school wrestlers. Like, those are some of the most well-conditioned people. They do a lot of stuff to stay in shape for that sport. But they're not only breathing hard, but they have to deal with somebody else like on top of them, somebody else like hugging them, somebody like knee on belly. Like, I don't know all these things and what they're for exactly, but I'm imagining like some of it is to try to make me tense, try to make me, if you put your knee like on my like quad to try to get some other hold or whatever. Some of it's to make me like flip out and panic and like give you something probably, right? And so it would be very difficult. Like it wouldn't be that bad to breathe when I'm running. Like, all right, I got that down. Okay, I can. And then for me to think like I could do it in jiu-jitsu, it would be a way different story, especially if I didn't have much experience with that before. So I think that's hugely probably what you guys are dealing with. It's a contact sport. People are smothering you. Everybody kind of knows what it's like to be new. And then it's like, well, let me give this, this is how I learned the fucking.
It's hazing.
And I'm sure like people are they're not like, not everyone's doing dirty shit to you, but there's probably some people in class that are throwing a little dirty stuff in there too, just because it's kind of fun and funny to break people in, right?
Do you know what your testosterone levels are at? How about your estrogen? How about your prolactin? How about your cholesterol? If the answer is, I don't know what they're at, well, we've been talking about blood work for a long time now. That's why we've partnered with Merrick Health, a company owned by Derek for more plates, more dates. Now, with Merrick, you can get yourself something called the Power Project Panel, which will give you 26 different labs that will help you understand what's going on underneath the hood. After that, you'll be able to be partnered with one of their patient care coordinators, which will give you interventions that range from lifestyle, supplements, to potential hormonal health treatments that can help move you in the right direction. But it all starts with knowing on what's going on down here. So get your blood work done. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, we have 2 options for you guys. Head over to merrickhealth.com/powerproject. That's MAREK health.com/powerproject. There you guys will see the Power Project panel that Nsima was just talking about. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $101 off of that panel. Now, if you want to custom select your own panel, you guys can use promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off all labs. Again, that's at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Well, so the breathing and running is a great example too, because I do think the same thing that keeps someone from learning. You see people that have been successful. Like I know there's some people that are like really high level runners that can do sub 3 hour marathons, and they're overstriding, mouth breathing, and it's like they've just learned. But in order for them to say, hey, it might be beneficial, what's the thing that blocks them from doing that? And I think that's the intention thing. It's the same thing that I think, in jiu-jitsu, it's like whatever drags it to, whether it's running, like I have to hit this pace, have this time, I have to beat the person in front of me. Like, okay, you're just grabbing the next closest stimulus that gets your attention. In jiu-jitsu, it's provided for you. Like, hey, this is your now stimulus. Like, this is his name. You're going to be by him. So like, within that, it's like if you don't set the intention ahead of time, but the hard part is like if for you set the intention, I'm going to learn how to nose breathe. I'm going to show up. And even in jiu-jitsu, it's like you have to be willing to sacrifice some aspect, whether I'm going to slow down my roll and I'm not going to be able to control the pace and control everything. So I have to submit to some level and I will get tapped and there's a submission involved. Same thing running is, all right, if I know that I can go and hit these paces by just doing whatever, but like I want to do this long-term thing, then there's an intention you have to set about that, which is, okay, I'm going to take a step back and do this. And I think that's the hard part. It's the ego. And that's where I go back to the outward-facing posture, which is like how are you going to intend to move forward and allow this thing, which I think like sports and physical activity is just an avenue to learn your body and then to use that as a better way to, interact with the world. How do you adjust that intention? And I think that's the hard part for most guys. If something's worked for them, they're like, yeah, we'll try this thing. But the second I feel threatened, I'm going right back to what I know. And the second I need to be able to hit this race or like that running is my therapy, I'm going to go back to doing what I know. And they don't stick with that long enough. So then I think that's where you get the injury, which is like body's giving you pain and you're avoiding it and you're not making the adjustment. Whether, it's all, there's an interesting, like in nature when there's like the poison, the antidote, it's always nearby in some sense, like the plants or the food or whatever it is. And the same thing, when you have the pain, it's almost always, if you pay attention, there's the signal for the solution is nearby. Like, okay, my body's stiff and tight. Someone's almost always telling you in the same breath, hey, breathe, do this stuff. I remember what it was like. And there's things, and I remember hearing those things, and in the moment, the hard part is everything you ever do as an individual is always rational to you. It makes sense. It's like, I get why you're doing it and what you're doing. I know it makes sense to you, and I know you'd have to trust me to do something different, which seems counterintuitive because it would put you at risk for your ego, your physical body, whatever it is. You have to trust that, and that's the hard part because it's like in jiu-jitsu, it's like it's easier if you embrace the white belt. I think that's one thing that we both do fairly well. Is like, it's bleached, it's pretty clean. It's like I'm not going in there to try and be the best at the sport. Like I'm going in to get more confident in myself, which is a pretty low bar because as long as I show up and do the thing and come back, like it won. And I think that's what you've been most successful in running is like, I don't know where it'll end up, but you've just showed up like, no ego. I'm just going to plod along and do it, run every day, run through it. And it's like with that white belt mentality, it lets you just show up to whatever it is, lifting and stuff. But when you attach the ego, I've heard like swimming is the thing you do when you stop judging yourself for having bad technique. Like,
what is what you do?
Swimming is the thing you like. For example, a lot of people say I can't swim or I'm a bad swimmer, and they in the same breath like, oh, have you ever swimming? Oh no, I can't swim. Like they have like these labels they have about themselves, and it's like, well, swimming is, and this I've not my quote, but I've heard it, and I don't know where it came from, but swimming is the thing you do when you stop judging yourself for having bad technique. And you've discovered so many things about running.
It's from Alan Watts,
and
he said it basically referring to the last kid in the class that learns how to swim is the kid that all of a sudden he's not thinking about swimming anymore. He's thinking about playing with the other kids that are swimming. And then he swims over to them, but he didn't even think about swimming. You know what I mean? So it's tough to get to those points though. You need a lot of, some people need visual, some people need physical, and sometimes you need it over and over. Some people can pick up stuff in 3 tries, 4 tries. Some people it might take you a year sometimes to learn something that you're thinking is so simple. And that's why it's interesting when you say no ego. I think that's pretty easy for people to understand. But if you say no or low expectations and people are like, I don't want to play that game. They're like, I don't want to be involved in that.
Wait, don't you have the sign out in the gym? I'd rather be dead than average.
Yeah.
Your brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but in a sense, like I think that's where you find the most valuable thing is not necessarily your personal type, your personality type and stuff like that, but it's like what you find interesting. It's like, and I do think that there's a certain level of like, there's a passion that can drive you to go and do dumb things when you're younger, like, I don't know, stay up all night playing video games because you absolutely love it or whatever it is. But like, then I think as you season that a little bit, you can bring some of this more intentional aspect. And that's where you start to learn more valuable things in terms of you start to take this pursuit and understand that, okay, this is like an opportunity for me to expand my capacity as an individual. So, but like the expectations, that's an interesting idea, like the idea of expectations, assumptions, unspoken agreements. But I do think it goes back to that. But that's been the valuable thing is like,
I think some people can maybe change their expectations a bit where you can maybe recognize you're only going to learn stuff so fast. And then like, what's reasonable for you?
Yeah.
Like, is it reasonable for you to think about jiu-jitsu when you come home, when you're done with your day and you ran and you did your other stuff that you do for your business? Sure. That sounds totally reasonable. Watch some videos and think about it more. Think about it, on your way to class and think about it more on your drive home from class. those things are all reasonable. But where we get irrational or where we get, in a state where we're not very reasonable is when we start to compare ourselves to other people. Like, oh man, fuck, that guy came in like, man, at least 2 or 3 months after I started. He's smoking me, but you have no idea what the guy's background is. Maybe he's
did judo for a long time.
Yeah, maybe he did something else, or maybe he's just fucking, sometimes you just gotta, and then what can you do? Like, what can you do to get better than that guy? For you have other things going on. So to have things running in parallel, but then you got to calm yourself back down again and say, no, I'm doing this to get more confident with myself. Fucking don't forget that. So all I got to do is show up twice a week like I already planned. I'm already doing that. I'm already checking those boxes. So why am I disappointed that I'm not keeping up with this other guy that I don't even know?
So that's a fascinating, because it goes to something like there's a parallel with that, which is because my only goal and intention with jiu-jitsu, at least at this point, is just to be more confident in myself and show up. Like, I don't think about it the second I show up, put on the gi, do the thing, take it off, and just am very like, that's it. I don't watch videos. I don't think about it. I don't obsess about it, because I'm just think about it. I think about it as a completely personal thing, not necessarily that's why it's always funny to me. Like, people talk about competing. It's like, oh wait, this is like tennis for some people. This is like, they really love this. Like, they wanted to go and think and watch the guy, watch the, I don't know who the best of the best is, but like watch the best of the best and watch do all that stuff. But the other side of that is with running this 400. So I go to the track meet. And so I did a little time trial yesterday just to see where I was at, and I was disappointed. I was, I had expectations, very high comparison expectations. So I was like, I'm going to get, below 55, continue to work better, because I've learned a lot, but I haven't had the reps and practice to be able to put that in and like make the physical changes in my body yet. So that led to, I know all this stuff, because a lot of the people we talk about, they get very conceptual and philosophical with movement and all the stuff. And if you just unlock these things, you'll be running faster than Usain Bolt. And so there's that kind of feeds into it. And there's something about like a 400-meter sprint that ever since high school, and I so desperately wanted to be on the 400 team, and I was just always never like, and they didn't have the speed or the capacity. I didn't know how to train, didn't know how to do that stuff. And then, but I can watch it Instagram, but just a random thing will pop up and somebody running. And my heart, like, it is like Monday or Sunday night, I was thinking I was going to do this time trial. And so I'm thinking about it. I lay down and start thinking about it. All of a sudden my heart's like, and I'm just like in bed, like thinking, okay, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go there. And I get 200 meters. I'm going to focus on this. My posture, like I'm through the whole thing, and I'm like wide awake at 3 a.m. because I cannot sleep. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this. And like the expectations. And then of course I just shit the bed the next day. I was actually trying to run, and I have so much expectation I put on. I was like, I want to do this. And if I can't do this, I'm going to suck, and everyone's going to hate me, and I'm going to be like, but I realized, like, why don't I should take the same exact mindset of like, you just show up and do the thing. When I'm at jiu-jitsu, I don't never skip a roll and go 100%. And I always try to find someone I know will be challenging, and I don't take the easy way out. Like, like there's some people, like, all right, they're smaller than me, or they're whatever. And it's like, I can, but that's the lesson I'm learning now, which is I walked away and I was just like really dejected yesterday. I was like, man, I'm a failure. I should just quit and go home. And there's a lot of that, which is like, it's an inner game that is keeping me, because there is a lot of the trusting in a sense, like being able to go and just trust your body is going to move. It's like, like even just the way I think about running.
You feel as if you force things sometimes. What do you mean?
With running, if you looked at my form, you would start to look at like, meaning, so there's an overstride, like there's things I've made adjustments, meaning like I don't overstride as much. I'm more relaxed. I have a slightly forward lean. Mark talks about these things all the time, but it's like when you look at like the maximal output, it's like, okay, there are things that happen, and the things that happen are second order externalities of me trying to force it, meaning I muscle through things. I land too high. So for example, one of the adjustments is like, you think, okay, I'm running correctly as a 4-foot strike. And we can make arguments about like 4-foot, midfoot, heel strike, anatomically what those mean. But like a 4-foot strike like you can land too forward on your foot, meaning your heel is high. And the higher your heel is, the further it has to travel before the arch can flatten out, which means it's longer time on the ground, which is slower turnover and slower movement. So being able to land with essentially as much surface area as possible with the heel, still on the 4-foot, but like the heel is just barely off the ground.
Almost unidentifiable that you're even striking anything in particular on the ground.
Yes. And this is where people would call
splats.
People would call that a midfoot strike, because it looks like the whole foot's going down, but technically the midfoot is the arch. So you're really making, this is the value of having a shoe with a heel raised, because like it just makes it harder. If I need to get a millimeter off the ground to be able to hit the ground and pop off, like look at the Maasai tribe and Usain Bolt were there. Usain Bolt is running 100 meters in less than 10 seconds from dead start. That's less than a second for every 10 meters. It blows your mind to think about how quick that is to hit the ground. And that doesn't happen if I'm landing with my heel an inch off the ground because I'm supposed to be upright and I'm thinking I got to muscle through it, then my muscles fatigue. And what do I look like at the end of a 400? I look like I'm overextended and my body is like falling apart because my muscles are dying. And like, okay, well, I'm not running with the right set of tissues. I'm using a wrong set of fuel for the race. Like I'm showing up and thinking I got to muscle through this when it's really this like one of those random guys. He's probably one of those guys that's just like, you know, the quintessential janitor at the end of the Goodwill Hunting kind of thing. But like this guy's a track coach and he just shows up and he goes and does his stuff and he goes, you know, the ground will give you some of the back if you're in the right spot. And like that just stuck in my head. I was like, oh, the ground will give me some of the back if I'm in the right spot. So like Les Spellman, working with him and just starting to see some of these postures and hips extended and like some of these, that's where like all the stiffness in my hips and the rotation, all these things like, oh, so I have all these things in my head. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be the best. And it's like, no, you got to show up, let the ego go, because the ego will immediately go make me force things.
Let me ask you a question too, because you're very experienced. Like you've done a lot of running in your past. When you're doing these runs, do you find yourself thinking during your 400? Like when you're about to do like, okay, I'm going to try to go for this time on these 400s. As you're running, are you thinking of things? Are you thinking of form? Or are you just letting your body do its thing?
I think Mark this was something I picked up from him, is like you pick one thing to focus, like a very simple cue, and like you kind of stack them, but like, okay. And most of those are like more themes, like, okay, relax, or like the double down from like David Weck and like head over foot, or like I'm going to hit the ground in this spot. And I think of those as like practice reps. It's like, okay, how do I ingrain this? But so I'll break that into two. There's a type of thinking I think I try to focus on, and this might not be helpful at all, but is the tactical cue of like, where do I want my body? Like, what is the position? Like, what grip do I want to have? What position? How do I want to breathe? Whatever it is, something like that. As opposed to the other side of thinking where I get, all right, you're tired, you know, like it's very easy to switch back into that. And I think that's the thing, is like learning just to like, when I feel fastest is when I just shut off and go. But that generally happens like 4 or 5. What I'll say is like, I think about that as the rolling in a sense. Like if I go and do 3, 4, 5 reps where I think one cue at a time, and then I start to like get more natural, my body, literally my knees feel loosened, everything loosens, and I go, that's where I start to run the fastest. But it's hard to remember that. I always have to like work my way into that, because I want to just think and focus, because if I think too much, I go, oh boy, you're feeling tired, your hamstrings are a little tight, you could do, you know, your feet, like you start to beat, and then I blow up.
You have a real distinct advantage over a lot of people, though. You know what that is?
You and Nsima and Andrew.
Well, that too, yeah. Yeah, super training, right? No, distinct advantage is that you don't compete in the 400. So what does that mean? You get to do it on your time.
Well, I want to compete at some point.
No, I understand. Yeah. But my point here is just like, I would say have a day where it's like there's like a specific intent, and then if it feels open to go for it, then fucking go for it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, so it might be a day where you're planning on like doing a particular workout. Maybe you're doing some 50-yard sprints or something. You do a couple of them and you're like, wow, okay, today's going to be a little different. And you try like 100 and you're like, okay, I'm pretty confident. I think today might be a good day, because remember that day?
That was what I
didn't ran the super shoes and you ran randomly 57 seconds, I think.
Well, so that was a year ago. I ran the super shoes and I took them off and did a 55-second barefoot. But that was a year ago. That's why I wanted to do it. Right. But that time, I was warmed up. I was having fun as people I liked, and it was a sunny day, and it was just like, all right, I'm gonna go for it. But like I wasn't thinking about it, and so like that's the thing I get to, which is there's two parts. One is like, and the same thing in jiu-jitsu, because again, it forces you, and I think that's the thing I like about jiu-jitsu is like I tend to be very cerebral and get stuck in my head of like, okay, I could get hurt, I could do this is bad, and so that keeps me like 40, anywhere from 10 to 40% less effective and less assertive and aggressive than I otherwise would be in jiu-jitsu. There's no option. You're just like and eventually I get like, I turn on some more of aggression and like, okay, that's where I need to start to live in a little bit more, but intentionally. The hard part though is like getting that mindset to be more forward facing the other aspects of life of like, okay, trust the gut and just like move, but you have to put in the reps to get to that point too. So that's the other thing is like, I understand it's like there's a dichotomy to manage. Is I do need to go in with some focus on a very simple cue and just break it down one thing at a time. And if I can't just make that a mantra, so to speak, where I don't have to think, I can like set an intention and then just do that. If it's too complex if it's so complex I have to think about it, it's probably too complex, the wrong cue. But very simple, like breathing, you know, it's like set that and just carry that in there. And you maybe if you notice you've stepped out of that like range you wanted to be in, you pull yourself back in. But it's almost as simple as like you tell your body and it goes and does it. And then you get enough reps stacking those cues, eventually it becomes like a thing where you can go think. And
second nature. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I understand there's the dichotomy to manage. And with something like jiu-jitsu, I have no ego whatsoever about it because I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go up and that's what I'm. It's hard to get worse when you're starting off, but like I think I'm consistently getting better at a decent rate. But with running, the times I get the best, I kind of last fall was like I had some calf issues going on, like some pops in the Achilles or calf. I don't know. It took me like 2 months out trying to figure that out, but that's what led me to a lot of stuff of like, you know what? I have all these expectations, I have this ego, this identity, literally an identity built around running and what I'm supposed to be able to do. And you know what might be the thing that I'm actually missing is all the assumptions I'm making. And so like stepping back and say, okay, what do I think I know about running that I don't actually know? And so just watching you talking is just trying to talk of like, have access to some of the best coaches and some of the best people. And I pick up these things. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I have to like really step back. And so now it's very easy to go, okay, I'm going to have this thing. I'm going to go to the podcast, talk about how fast I am. It's going to be great. And like, it's a champion for Barefoot, all this stuff. Cause it's like the guy is a track kid I took a video. I had someone video so I could double check my hand time with the actual time. And he goes, well, I've never seen someone run barefoot before. I was like, that's kind of ironic because you have feet and you run. But whatever. The point was like, I'm going to go out there and it's going to be great. And it's like, nah, the huge ego hit in a sense is like, okay, there's something about that, which is like, that's the lesson I'm learning now. And it's mirrored through jiu-jitsu and other things. And the thing I really, really get close to heart is like, I really want to be good at this. Like if there's one thing I want to be able to like walk away with like athletically, physically, a sub 50, 400, like there's a lot of identity wrapped up into that. But that's the thing is like, it's not going to get there. I'm not going to get to that point by forcing it in a sense. And that's it. But it's so humbling. It's so humbling because it forces every other part of the thing that's worked well for me in my life is being really good at talking and being able to argue and have all these things and like being perfect and showing up and like outthinking and outriding and outdoing. And so like I can portray the aesthetic of like, I got everything together. I'm good. It's smooth. But then there's like the thing, if you want to break through that, you have to step back and be willing to submit. So, yeah.
Were your inputs deserving of a PR?
No, but that's the thing I thought about. Like I missed December and January because I was nursing these calves and trying to figure out. And then I realized like, oh.
Did you say calves or cats?
Calves.
Calves. You were nursing your calves.
Baby calves. Baby cows.
You were nursing calves.
Yeah.
Like the animals.
No, my calves.
Your actual calves.
Yes. My baby cows. I thought we were talking the same thing.
My guy. He's nursing his calves. Okay.
Calves, yeah.
His cattle. But yeah, so like.
He loves animals.
And so that was an ego hit too. Like I wanted to go out and run with you and I was trying to find you. And I'm talking like, this is a glorified plot. I'm like, like maybe a 20-minute mile trying to find Mark. And it's like at 2 miles in and just pop, something in my calf goes. And I was like, what in the world was that? And then I was like, okay, take a few days off, feel better. And then the nenext week at the track, pop. And it's like, and then it was the
same
left
calf?
side. It was 3 times, 2 times on the right calf. And then my left calf started to go. And I was like, okay. Then I realized like my toe, this is the thing is I'm the barefoot sprinter. I'm supposed to be the foot guy, has it all together. And I realized my toes are way too stiff. And so then I have to go back and question the assumption for the thing that I built my identity off of. It's like, okay, what if you're still missing the gate there? And which has led to like a whole new version of the program. I just like literally redid a lot of that. But it was one of those things I'm like, I'm jumping and doing all this stuff and I can't even go for a little run. And so that was December and January. And then in that time, so then February, I got like 4 weeks of like, okay, I actually can run again. But meanwhile, I'm trying to make some of these new adjustments, like with the foot strike, and then also understanding, okay, and Mark was talking about this yesterday, it's really valuable. It's like people talk so much about the foot strike for running, but it really is like the foot's just, I don't think about the fist strike with punching. We understand that it's like everything rotates in there, but like if I think about my feet when I run, my calves feel tight, my feet hurt, like because my attention is there. But the feet are just going along with the ride, and it's this whole body thing. So as I start to get, and this is like David Weck, all these people you were talking about, like this rotational head over foot, this cue, the go-to guys, like this coiling mechanics that very different. Because I was a grinder cross-country runner in high school, middle school, and then going to just powerlifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit. It's like I'm sagittal plane, baby. We don't rotate very much.
I think I heard grinder in there.
Grinding, yes, yeah. But that's my actual backup plan if this running thing doesn't work out. Just pictures and feet. But the point is that
very aesthetic feet. It is true.
Starting to work on
tendons,
that. Yeah,
and nice spacious toes.
Yeah, I know. But the point of that is looking at the changes to running form are a full body. They're a full body like flow. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, just land in the forefoot. It's like there's adductors, there's hips, there's rotational mechanics, and Mark is just obsessed with this stuff, figuring out. So all those changes are in my head too, and I have not had time for that to manifest in my body. And so then I go, forward, but the expectations are there because I'm thinking about it, watching YouTube videos, and I'm like, okay. Like every time I see something, if you want to get my heart racing at stupid times of the night, you just send me a video of someone running, okay. And I'm like, it's not helping me. And so
why did you make that sound? Who made that sound? If someone's listening and they just didn't see what Graham did
in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, just tell me, just.
I'm red pill, baby, no fap.
Andrew, do you have that video I sent over to you?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Emailed you something. My bad.
Man, but although, so I did not, my expectations did not match the actual physical things that I should have. So then it took a little while to flip that around and be like, all right.
So this is kind of a question for everybody. Just watch what, you got to play the audio too, to go along with it.
Head over foot.
But this is Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. And kind of the question here is like, how long do you have to be doing this shit to be able to do this to Mike Tyson? How long do you have to practice?
Makes Mike Tyson miss the right hand. Mike Tyson throws a jab at Evander Holyfield, but you can see Holyfield parry the jab with his right glove. And that prevents Mike Tyson from measuring the distance between the two and finding punching range. And then when Mike Tyson looks to throw that right hand, you can see Evander Holyfield pushing the side of his head in the opposite direction, and that misfires the accuracy of Mike Tyson's right hand, which follows. And ultimately, this makes Mike Tyson miss the right hand.
I mean, that takes... You know what I mean? Like that takes a career, right?
Yeah.
Holyfield's been boxing his whole life. He was a Olympic boxer. He was a professional boxer for a long time. He was a cruiserweight champion, ultimately the heavyweight champion. And him and his coach must have came up with something. It's like how much
probably
training.
On accident. When you did that, I couldn't. It's like they work on it.
They work on it, and they might have saw like maybe Buster Douglas did this to Mike Tyson because not a lot of people did this kind of shit to Mike Tyson. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't even think that kind of chop move would even work with how powerful Mike Tyson is. But if you look, Holyfield also moves his head.
Yeah.
It actually looks like it's so smart that it would be easier to almost like tap someone's punch in anticipation than it would be to move out of the way of his head. And if you watch Holyfield on the first one, he's able to tap the arm slowly, relaxed, very easily. And then he kind of moves his head out of the way.
Yeah.
So my point here is just like, it takes so long to ingrain some of these things that we're trying to learn. And I think especially for you and Andrew doing jiu-jitsu, it being new for you, and then even some of the new inputs that we're hearing with running, I'm pretty open to like trying a bunch of different things. Maybe I could get maybe I can get faster times, and maybe I could do better if I just was like, this is the right way. I'm going this way, and I'm just going to work really hard.
Yeah.
Maybe I could get somewhere faster, but my concern there is, and what I've seen happen before, is that you maybe end up in a position where you get a black belt that doesn't know how to relax.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to be like better just for better's sake. I want to be better and also work on being like more complete.
So two things on that. One of which is for like, this is a lesson from jiu-jitsu is, as someone who is non-initiated in any type of combat or physical touch, I'd see that and go, oh, those guys, like, I could probably, you automatically just think like you're like 60% of what they could do. Oh yeah, like it wouldn't hurt that much. But I'm like, you go to jiu-jitsu, it hurts that much and more. Like like there's a physical thing about like, you just completely underestimate. Like it's like you see NBA or NFL guys on TV, like, oh, whatever, like they're big, and you see them, oh my God, like they're big.
They make us look like kids.
And they're so strong and fast, and it really hurts when you you just can't. And that's the uninformed optimism of like, oh, when you're that bad, it's like, I can run that fast. Like, no, you can't. No, you would. It still hurts. That's one side. But like doing jiu-jitsu makes me have so much more respect for that, because you can't even calculate how physically athletic and competent these guys are. The other side of that is this is the thing that I want to work on from a running perspective. And so like say the Kador Ziani, for example, is not like fascially dominant is, there's a part like, okay, I could go and more, like I've done the long distance thing and it's not as meaningful, but the idea of something like that where if I'm patient and become the black belt that, avoid becoming the black belt that doesn't know how to breathe, it's like, is there capacity in my body, in the set of tissues that I rely on, that allows for something different? So, I want to be, because I'm 29, it's almost 30, but it's like, there's a fear of like, oh, you can only be as athletic and capable until you're this. But it's like, if I do it well and just take a year of just like really building up some of these tissues and like make my calf belly a little bit higher, it's interesting. But I think it would be an interesting, not to say I have to champion or do anything because I'm not obligated to something, but like if there was a test case and a study for my life, it's saying, can you build an athletic body over a consistent time? And I think a lot of that is, okay, the things I have to learn now aren't from like lifting weights and doing more stuff. It's like trusting the bones and like just like being in that space a little bit more and not forcing things. But that takes the opposite in some sense. It takes the approach that I've developed of like you bring attention and focus and do this stuff and show up and be consistent with the ego out of it and to lower the expectations or adjust the expectations potentially. And that's where looking at if I can, if really to like figure out what the sacrifices necessary are to develop the physical tissue and body that is capable of, performing in a way like, all right, because when you get a 49, if I can run a 49 something second 400 barefoot, that says a lot, not just about me, which is very little about me. It just says I just did this for a long time, but it says a lot about like what people could do in a sense. In so much that's like, it's not really motivation. I just do it because it's interesting to me, but it's like, when I hear a track kid running and I do coaching calls with kids that have like shin splints or plantar fasciitis or Morton's and Romans and stuff like that, it's like, hey, have you thought about the shoes? And this is the part too. I do think, so Tiana and I were talking about this last night. When you have a new technology, it only takes a generation or two before you've completely forgotten about the capacity. So think about phones, directions, understanding, like seeing the stars, like how many generations have a phone before we've completely forgotten what it's like to not be able to call someone, to have to communicate, to have to just say, hey, I'll see you tomorrow at 12 and trust that. Hey, I'll, this place, like we don't even, and this is the same thing as kids talking to me. It's like, I've never seen someone run without shoes before. I'm like, you're a track athlete at like a high level. And it's fundamentally, we forget that shoes are a modern day thing. And it's like 1920s are the first induction of the modern cleats. But, the Greeks, for example, they thought of shoes as unaesthetic, unnecessary, and unathletic. That's why the Olympics were all done naked. There's multiple reasons probably, but they thought the body they thought of the body as an aesthetic thing to demonstrate and show.
That would be a great Olympics, man.
But
I'd only be watching the female side of things.
Yeah. So,
golly.
But like
some of those track women, bro.
I know. Well, the first events in the Olympics were when
the Olympics were around, I was so embarrassed. Well, I wasn't even embarrassed, but like my whole fucking YouTube Discover feed was all like pole vault, 100 meter, fucking the long jump.
There is something about a female sprinter. It's just something else. But like, and I don't know why they make them wear underwear, but it's like, whatever, there's something about this athleticism, this poise. And you just look at like, we want to see the body on display. And I think Alexander the Great conquered the world with barefoot armies because the Greeks, they, like little sandals and stuff. The Romans were the first ones that had like metal infused shoes, the first cleats, so to speak. But that's like, that's, you would think of it a long time ago. That's just a few hundred years ago. And humans have existed. And so my point is that in some sense, technology allows us to see things from a different vantage, but it also makes us dumb as to the original medium. And when you no longer understand that, like, and that's where I think we missed the boat when we started thinking about, I want to run. What's my foot strike? And I get people that message me all the time, like, I have my fourth metatarsal extension is weak. I'm like, it shouldn't be that hard. You don't think about your fingers like that. We've been robbed of the ability just to think of our bodies just like a unit. Like, you don't even think. I remember when Jimmy House came by and he was deadlifting. The man just like his little feet, not little feet, but his little toes just grabbed the ground. And he didn't think about it. And a lot of the people.
Something he just does, yeah.
Yeah. And we think it's like, if you look at, Kobe Bryant said this, it's like, don't watch what I do, watch how I do it. It's like, if we just watch the things that people don't pay attention to, like big toe extension, just moving. But how much of our bandwidth is sucked up by this background noise of having to figure out things that shouldn't have even been a thought to begin with. And that's hard.
It's true. But like, the cool thing is, like, when you came here, we were going a little bit down the foot rabbit hole because Ben Patrick talked about that a little bit. But after you helped us out a lot, Mark's feet, my feet, Andrew's feet are drastically different, move drastically different than a year ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now they're just so much more active when we're not doing things.
And we had to kind of think about it at first because we didn't know anything about it.
And this is not a dissuasion from anybody that, like, you do need to go. Unfortunately, it's like, if for example, both Andrew and I starting, like there's a little bit of like it sounds silly. I just need to learn to be more aggressive. And that should be like, like as a young boy, you wrestle like have to deal with nature. It's just like it's like when you see a young kid who walks in as like 14, 15, 16, because this is me at 16 going into, if I ruined the whole podcast, at 16 going to the gym and like, I can't even like pick up a weight. And it's like my hands are so like soft and little babies and little pale kids. It's like you look at a kid and you're like, you should be able to do so much more. And yet they just like, they could, but they're weak and they're just soft. And it's like, okay, you're just going to have to go do some, like pick up something and carry it around and rough up your body for a long time. And so unfortunately, it's kind of like if you see a kid who's 20 and he can't read, you're like, okay, well, or they can't write, they can't speak, or can't do some basic thing. It's like it's holding them back. It's like, unfortunately, there is a reality. We have to pause the progress we would have made in order to slow down and do this thing. But if you do that, you'll have the rest of your life. But if you don't, you're going to be hindered. So that's the kind of thing is like, for people who have been robbed of the fact that, and the barefoot shoes are not enough. I think you both have seen this too, is like you do have the skin, the thousands of nerve senses that you have to feel and move and then get into. Like you both are obsessive. Actually, all three of you like are obsessive in moving your toes and starting to think about them like your fingers and get tissue mobility that is beyond just saying, I bought a pair of Vivos, now I'm good to go. It's like, that's very helpful and it's good and it can be a step. So anything, whether toe spacers, whatever it is that gets people in that motion. But, we kind of have to go back to third grade PE and think, okay, let's do some rudimentary work to like think about our body. I'm going to take 3 months of my life, set the intention. Okay, let the ego go back. I might not be able to tap everybody in Jiu Jitsu or run as much as I was or whatever, but I'm going to build this foundation. And then when I do that, it's like, okay, so that's what I'm starting to think about is the feet are service to what? The hands are service to what? And that was the other change I noticed with Jiu Jitsu I thought was valuable is like the tendons in my fingers hurt for weeks. I'm telling you, like I remember one time you got in a grip and I got hold of my like, I don't know what it is. I'm just going to stay here. And I'm telling you like deep tendon. I happened to be training or traveling for 2 weeks right after that. My fingers hurt for weeks because it is the first time I'd ever got like a really tight grip, like for my life dependent on it. And like there's tendon changes. And so now I think, okay, the first step of this process is let me just feel this stuff again. Like, okay, this is what my feet feel like. And then the next is like get some tissue mobility. Then, so this is the things I have this running program, which is kind of like my, ode to humanity, whatever I'm trying to create, like the culmination, because it always goes back. There's like a cycle. It's like, okay, for example, let's just say you're looking at right now. You all live in Sacramento, so you're very familiar. You could tell like where the granular capillary level like roads are in the city. But if you go visit Austin, you're like, oh God, I have no idea where I am. The first round of understanding what Austin is what's the big belt loop? What are the major highways? What's the interstates going through? Okay, that's like knowing the big fascial lines. These are the basic things of like, I flex and I extend and I rotate. Okay, I got the big layover. And as you go through, there's a first set of like pain discovery process. All right, I learned the major highways and interstates. Then it's like, oh, let's get a little more granular. And so most people would think, I did the thing, I'm done, I'm supposed to be in like happy heaven and never hurt anything. I have no pain again. It's like I live in numbness. It's like, no, pain is an invitation to explore. Well, the next round, okay, well, I have a basic map of this stuff. Now let me go back in and say, oh, these are the major like highways around, these are the major roads that go in and they lead into the city. Okay. And the third round, you start to understand the neighborhood. And then you figure out this is actually like, these are the back streets and this is this little, hole in the wall space. And that's how you learn your body. And there's two parts of that. I think people get stuck in this process of going further and further down, which there's something to be said, but they also don't then go and apply that to the thing that could hurt them again. And I think the point of this rehab...
before you continue, explain that.
Which, to get hurt again?
Yeah. What were you getting at there?
So the point of a physical therapy, which is interesting, you think physical therapy, it's like you heal. It's like point of therapy is not to go and say, I've worked through all my trauma, now I never have to deal with it. No, you go and do hard things. You slowly get accustomed to your fear of heights so that you can go and be on, like, go hike in the mountains and not be afraid. It's like you do this so that you can do that, but you have to go back and approach the fear. It's not that you want to get hurt again. It's that if, let's say, I hurt my shoulder, any of the reasons I hurt my shoulder, let's just say I hurt my calf, like I just want my calf. And this is the negotiation people will make is they hurt themselves doing something. You say, eventually they avoid it. They do the ignorance, like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. It doesn't hurt that bad. And eventually it gets worse and worse and worse until either the overuse turns into an acute thing or it just like continually grinds them down. And they start making negotiations. They go, if I could just not be in pain. And they say, and you've been there with your back too. It's like you start to make negotiations about what you'll sacrifice. Just please let me just do this and have my life back because it starts to get pain. It like is an incessant noise. It just continues to beat you down.
People think they're fine if they didn't get a signal from their back pain for the day.
And that's that, and but it changes you as a person, your posture, your energy, everything about you. Pain and injury just completely just contracts you into this like shell marble of what you could have been. And it is not until you're willing to say, I'm not. Someone messaged me like, I want to do this right so that I don't have any hiccups. I'm like, no, you need to, I want to do this right, even if there are hiccups. Like, it's being willing to do it. And so, like, for you, you've changed as a person with jiu-jitsu. It's because, and I don't know what it is specifically, but you now think about yourself as someone that's capable of defending your family, as opposed to someone who's, okay, you know, if they get this close, then I'll try, but I get my back. So, you know, you can have my kid, but you can't have this one. You know, it's like, and you can have, like,
And you legitimately move differently. Like even the way you walk, your physical demeanor is
your eyes
different.
are different, everything. And so that's it. You either expanding or contracting. And so the thing is, it's not that I want to get hurt again, but I want to, when I accept, so the foot program, to put this tangibly, people will go and they've been, a lot of times by the time they get me, they've done the orthotics, they've done the injections, they've done the physical therapy, they've done the shoes, they've done it in years and lots of money. And they're finally like, okay, fine, I'll try this thing. Because it seems sketched like you move your toes would be the craziest thing you do. But you get to that point and they're like making negotiations. Like, I hope this works. And hope and faith is an interesting thing. Like, you have hope and hope is a belief based off of something you have no control over. Faith is something you do. So like, I just hope I can fix this. And so they do the first part. They wiggle the toes. I feel so much good. I feel so much better. I do the massage. I get the new shoes. Everything's good. And then they always get to about week 4. I have plyometrics and running drills in there. It's not a running program, but the plyometrics, like even just bouncing and just doing some very basic thing, which is
jump rope.
Jump rope, for example. But like, people are scared of that because if you've had plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis for years, you've made negotiations. You've sold your soul to the devil, saying, I don't care what I have to never do again. This is why I hate most like mainstream surgeons and doctors say, we got surgery, your knees will be fine. I just need you to never ski, jump rope, skateboard, walk, to do anything dangerous. It's like, okay, great, sit on the couch. But it's like they're afraid. And so as simple as jump rope, as simple as that, just bouncing. But they can't dream about like what they could do because they've already made that negotiation. And so it's being to the point I want to get healthy enough so that I could hurt myself again. So I can try to hurt myself again. It's not that you want to, but it's like I'm embracing the fact that life has vulnerability and there's variability in life. And that dreaming again, I think that's the thing is Andrew started dreaming again. Like Mark, I think has just been, you have a different, you take such unique and low expectations that you never get to your point where like, you're just very smart. You stay 10% below what you could do that day and you rarely ever get hurt. And so I think that's something to be said for doing it smart and just continue to show up. But as for people who have injuries and it's like, you know, you're very attuned. Like when we first ran, this was like a year ago or like 10 months ago and something popped in your hip and you're like, all right, pop him back. And you dropped all like, all right, I'm going to fix this. And you just completely studied to that. And it's like, not all of us, some are a little bit like, more study or more ego driven and stuff like that. But there's different paths for everybody. But the point is that like, you never gave up that idea. I'm going to keep doing it a little bit better. You just were willing to say, I'm going to do it right. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of, I don't know the psychology behind the other piece of it, but does that make sense?
Power Project family, your normal shoes are making you weak. This is why I partner with Vivo Barefoot shoes, because they have a wide toe box, they're flat, and they're flexible. So with every single step you're taking, if you're taking a 10-minute walk outside, or when you're working out in the gym, your feet are able to do what they're supposed to do in this shoe. They have tons of options for hiking, running, training in the gym, chilling and relaxing, casual shoes for if you're out on a date. You need to check them out. And Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at vivobarefoot.com/powerproject, and you guys will receive 15% off your order automatically. Again, vivobarefoot.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Yeah.
What you got over there, Andrew?
If you tilt the mic towards you a little bit.
I told you I ruined the whole podcast.
No, you're fine. It's just now you sound a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, what you're saying about like the, like I've never heard anybody say what you just said about like my eyes look different now.
Oh yeah, it's your energy. Everything about your body is calibrated to like the thoughts and the emotions, and like it's all one unit.
Yeah, because that literally did control my life. Like I stopped using a barbell for my exercising. Like I never touched it, but then I think Mark, you were just you had I think just 135 on the bar, and you were just doing that in conjunction with like a couple other things. Mm-hmm. And I just walked up to it and I was like, and I deadlifted it and I was like, looked around, I was like, and Nsima was the first person close to me. I just gave him a big old hug. I was like, dude, like I just deadlifted that and I felt nothing. Like I do feel more confident all around, in conjunction with jiu-jitsu, but like just the fact that like yeah, if I had to, I could definitely go deadlift, whatever, 225, but like when that pain is there, you use the word noise, and that's exactly what it sounds like, because it's like, I got to go brush my teeth. Like, oh, fuck, dude, like it's going to hurt my back.
Yeah.
I got to flush the toilet. It's going to hurt my back. And you do make sacrifices, and you make these, like you said, deals with the devil. It's like, yeah, I'm never going to touch a barbell again if I could just please not be in pain.
There's negotiations.
It's such a weird thing. Like, I don't know where that comes from or why. I mean, I know why, but it's just like, I wish there was another solution that people would go to, which is like what you're doing is helping people and stuff like that. But like, it's wild what the human mind will do, especially when it comes to protecting like an injury or something.
This has been around for so long. I remember being in the gym many, many years ago, and someone would say, they're like, oh, I stopped doing that particular movement for a long time. And then it's another movement, and then it's another movement. They're like, oh, I haven't bench pressed in like 10 years. All I can do is incline. And then that same guy, it's like, I stopped benching, I stopped doing incline. All I was doing is like, I don't know, chest flies, right?
Yeah.
They just like get to a point where everything just kind of starts to shut down, and you start to lose some of those capacities. So in the case of something like a deadlift, I think people get confused really easily, because sometimes we're talking about like sports, and sometimes we're talking about like, what's the most important thing? Does it really matter if you deadlift 315 or 405? Am I going to feel that when you grab me in jiu-jitsu, or am I going to feel that if I line up against you in football? I don't know. Probably not. However, it would be a great idea for you, in conjunction with whatever sport it is that you're doing, or whatever your goals are. If you just got your back to be better, it'd be a great idea to work on strengthening it.
Yeah.
One way you can strengthen it is through figuring out some way to bend forward with some sort of resistance. I mean, there's so many different things that you could do. It doesn't have to be a regular deadlift with a regular barbell. When you do your squat, it doesn't have to be the weights loaded on your back. We've had guys in here more recently, they've been doing safety squat, bar squat, where they hold their hands on the rack. Those are great movements.
You get Zerchers.
Yeah, Zercher squat. I mean, there's so many
the
options.
hip squat thing you have, that belt squat?
Yeah, belt squat. There's so many options. So you don't have to really say, I think maybe that's something that people maybe they don't even know, is that there's so many options. You can do kettlebells, you can do dumbbells. I mean, it's just the list of opportunities that there are to do a similar movement are huge, and it would be a giant mistake to completely get rid of certain movements.
That's one of the, real quick, is one of my favorite things you've ever said is like, why do we deadlift from right about that level? It's like, because somebody made the plates that tall and they put the hole right there. It's like, oh, why do we even deadlift? Like, it's all made up.
It is. Well,
It is 100% made up.
The plates are that tall because they would not crush the average man's head. So like the width of the bar off the ground is just like seriously, if it fell, it would not crush a man's head. Like that's the original measurement. But I think the to your point is like, they won't feel 315 versus 405, but what they will feel is the confidence. Because like there's a difference. I can have the same exact strength numbers and go and be completely different on the mat with 100 classes versus 0 classes because I have no confidence. And I think that's the thing is like if you look at like this is the thing that I really get annoyed about with physical therapy is they go, oh, it's physical therapy, then I'm going to go exercise. No, physical therapy, exercise is physical therapy. All the stuff that we've been doing, I think, we started to play around with like the box squats recently, but most of what I see you two doing are something on a cable machine where you're using different positions to pull you in and you're exploring. It is movement, whether it's the ball on the string, whether it's the rotation. It is like and to a certain extent, there's a time for, like, let's say, for me, like doing the boring thing over and over again. Like I need to rough my body up. So there's something to be said for like developing the tissue strength of like basic hypertrophy and strength. But a lot of this is like people stop exploring when they go to the gym. They do their HIIT class, they're there 20 minutes to get their stuff. And like every time you go in the gym, it's an opportunity to just feel and move your body. And I think there's a piece of that, which is like, if you looked at exercise as though it was physical therapy, it's just physical therapy is when you're in pain, all you earn is, there's like the, there's the prepare, peak, recover phases is like when you're hurt, you just do the warm up. That's it. That's all physical therapy is the warm up. And as you feel a little bit better, you can do a little bit more, a little bit more intensity in that. And you kind of build back up to like a full capacity. But like, that's the thing is the confidence that comes from finding if you're in pain, if you're limited, if you, whatever it is, you have to go and do the thing that scares you. But you don't have to do the thing that scares you. You can do something close to it. And there's so many variations you could start. Hey, I'm going to start with a, regressed height, like a higher plate. There's wagon wheels, for example, on a trap bar. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to slowly work down. And you don't have to get to this like in roll because it's all made up. It's all just, I'll die anyways. But the point is not that you achieve some objective outcome. The point is that you consistently showed up, because I think that's what really matters. Like as a expand, because the same guy who goes from doing bench press to chest flies, and everything else in his life, you know, is not getting promotions at work. His wife's not happy with him. Whatever his kids are, because he's contracting. You're either contracting or expanding, and I think that's the hard part.
I want to encourage because there have been a lot of people who have been listening to the podcast saying, I just started jiu-jitsu, I've been wanting to. If you're listening right now and you've been wanting to, just get in and start. I know that like we sound like 2013 people who discovered CrossFit, because you know when people start CrossFit, they're like, oh God, you know, have you heard of this CrossFit?
It's all over their page. Yeah.
Have you heard of CrossFit? Let me tell you about the gospel of CrossFit. And we sound kind of similar with
They
jiu-jitsu.
got the stickers on the back of their car, like the CrossFit stuff.
Right? I'm at this box.
But there's a lot of people not doing much
That
physically.
and also the thing is just jiu-jitsu will put you in so many different positions. Like you're going to feel so much pain because your body hasn't been in any of these positions before. As you adapt and as you get stronger, those positions become something normal. But now you're moving your body in so many different ways that it probably hasn't moved if you've only been in the gym.
You can look at your opponent as a stretching partner.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you, Nsima. Thanks for shoving my kneecap into my face. That's great.
He's going to stretch out your elbow really, really far to max capacity, and then just hold it there until you give up.
Yeah,
which
my
is
esophagus
very
is
nice.
very stretched out.
We're going
at
to take
point.
this to the end range of motion. Okay.
And there you go.
Seriously, you go into so much variable movement. And then if you have something like the gym or whatever else, your body just getting a lot of what it normally wouldn't get, a lot of stimulus. So if you've been wanting to, just go fucking start. You'll really enjoy yourself.
And you could do the thing that I did because I was too afraid, is I did 4 sessions with an instructor just to feel like I wasn't going to die the second someone touched me. And then it seems like, do the classes. Like, okay, fine. Control your breathing. But if I did 4 sessions with a guy, and because I had 11 shoulder dislocations going into it. So my whole, I'm going to get hurt the second, I had no confidence about being able to control my body against resistance. And so then doing a few of those sessions was just like, it was just a thing I need to get started. So I did my first class, and then like at this point, like, okay, now I can go to, it seems silly, but like just even going to a different class was like, oh, there's different people. They might not be mean. They might be nice to me. And it's like, you develop levels and levels of confidence and comfort. And then eventually it's like, oh, okay. But wherever you need to start, like I started with some individuals, and it was a really good place for me, but it was, partly my inner neuroses but I got through it, and now I'm,
And if you're in Sacramento, come to Casio Wernick Jiu-Jitsu.
Of course.
Lots of fucking great people there.
Oh,
but Graham, one thing that's really cool about you, dude, is first off, a year ago, you uproot your life in North Carolina, you get everything set, you come and you move here to a place where you don't know anybody, just so you can put yourself in a situation where you can meet and talk to a lot of people that are going to help you advance. And we've talked a lot on the podcast about, if you do want to get better, you're going to have to change your setting. You're going to have to change the people you train with. You're going to have to change your friends. You're going to have to change certain things if you want to progress. And if you want to stay comfortable, you can stay exactly where you are. You can be the king of your hill. You can be the big cat wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
So it's really impressive that you did all of that. But what do you think allowed you to have the confidence to move across the country to a place like this? And you've changed so much within a year. But what gave you that confidence to do that, dude?
So I've thought a lot. There's two things, and neither one of them are going to be, what, I just had this great realization one day. It's soft commitments and shit just breaking. So there's 2 things. One of prior to that, the reason I started doing it is like, I was married. That fell apart real quick. I had a job. The pandemic destroyed that. And then, I have friends and close by, and then just one of my close friend died from a heart attack that day, like overnight. Like they talked to him that morning, and then you get a call from my other close friend and they died. Like, so things just break in life, because as much as I want to say I'm a self-determined man and pulled myself up, I'm in bootstraps, I'm way too soft for that shit. Way too soft. And I was like, it's scary. So, but eventually, like, I was trying to hold on to so much control that when things break, just because, is the things you didn't see coming, or the ones that really like hit you, is the things I worry about aren't the things. Alex Mosey had this tweet yesterday, but it was like, the things I worry about aren't the things that I didn't worry about are the ones that really smacked me. But it's the things that I worry about never come true. So it's like, the point is, he said it much more eloquently than me. But the point is, like, there's a lot of things like that first broke me free from at least the lie that I could control and like manipulate my own outcome. And so like that was the first set of like, I'm married in college, all these, had a house, had the whole thing. And so like, all right, things aren't going to happen for me. Like, the marriage isn't just going to work out because I show up, I'm a nice guy. The job isn't just going to work out because I'm a good employee. Like, the friends aren't just going to work out because I'm here and consistent. So, like, okay, there's a little bit of autonomy I have to have. So that got me on the path of like, okay, let's, start your own online business, open up your own gym and like do that. So then I got a little bit of confidence. I'm like, oh, actually, like I always freak about I always think this is amazing because I have so much anxiety and worry about the future. But I always picture myself in the future as this weak, passive, pushover, like incapable person. But I'm never that way in the moment. I'm always capable and I can figure things out. We're back in the corner. Right, we're going to do this. And why would I think my future me would be less competent, capable, or confident than I am now? Like it'll be more so. So if I can handle things now and I'm not worried about myself now, why am I worried about future me? Because future me is going to be even better. So that's one step of like, okay, things just broke and eventually like there's no certainty as much as you want certainty. You want to like, I want to say I love you and we're going to get married. You're never going to leave me or nothing bad's going to happen. I want to say everything's going to work out. I can't guarantee it. And even if I could, I wouldn't want that because that would be miserable. The other thing that helps me is soft commitments. So I didn't just pack up everything up and moved over here. I was Mark had me come out. So we did the podcast and then I guess Mark thought my eyes are pretty. So he was like, hey, I want you to come out for a few weeks. And he was like, a month. I was like, okay, so at that point it was like, all right, what would I need to do to come out for 5 weeks? Okay, well, I have someone else come work with a client. I made enough small things. Okay, so I can kind of do that. I was like, okay, well, that got me to think because when I was in situation,
lived with that Asian guy who ate real loudly. Right?
Oh my god, yeah, the story's there. Yeah, he put me up in Airbnb. He was wonderfully nice, and I had a college Asian roommate. That's something else.
When you said he ate loudly, what do you mean though? I love those people.
I got whatever that fear is. It like triggers me to my soul.
I just want to, when I see someone eat like that, I want to slap them. I want to give them such a dirty slap across the face because your mouth needs to be.
I picture Graham like going in like the shower and then peeking back into the kitchen and being like, fuck, he's still out there chewing.
He would get a box of pizza that lasted him the whole week. But I don't mean he refrigerated it. He would let it sit on the table. And he'd come like 3 days later, I'll take a bite. It was the worst. So like I come out and I make the decision like, all right, I've got to go and, I've got to set up, I've got to put enough of a relationship and change enough things that like, okay, what do I do with these certain variables in my life? And so like, situation A with constraints A, meaning I'm in this environment where the problems and the things that I think that I have that are forcing me to stay in this spot are now my reality. Then opportunity comes up. And even if, this is the thing I think is valuable, like hypothetically, even if I didn't come out, I would have had to think about, if I go to the thought experiment, well, what would I need to do to be able to put this business on pause? Which I think Tim Ferriss's book, that 4-Hour Work Week, was valuable for people like a decade ago because it got them to think, well, what would I need to do to be able to go for a 2-week vacation? And so by thinking, I can create an environment that says, oh, now I would have this constraint, get this constraint, get this constraint, because I've solved these original problems. So then I can go do that. The point is being able to say, okay, I'm going to go and pack up and leave for a month. That's valuable. And so then when I was out of here, I was like, oh, wow, this is like, you're not going to find another place where like smarter, better, stronger, more successful people come through. It's like, this is the place I need to be if I want to grow. So maybe I'll do like, I'll come here for 2 weeks and stay for 2 weeks. And then it's like, okay, start to make friends, start Jiu Jitsu, start to really get life here. And so I made a bunch of soft commitments. That by the time you end up making a bunch of soft commitments, you really realize you've made a hard commitment. And it's like, oh, by the time I've made a bunch of soft commitments, it makes the hard commitment that much easier. So like, yeah, I'm going to move. I'm just going to do this. Like, because eventually I'm like, you see through all the things that keep you in a place. Like, my clients don't really need me. I don't like, I have online, I've broken enough of the things that I thought kept me in one spot. I was like, well, I'm only young once. Why would I not do this? It's like, as Mark literally were on the walks, like, if I were you, this is a great place to move. I was like, oh yeah. You'll find that people will say something to you and they say a lot of stuff and some things will stick with you. Like, oh, well, what would it look like? And so then I was like, all right, well, I'd rent the house out and then just pack up the car. I don't need this furniture anyways. And then you just end up doing it. And then by the time you've made it, it's like, oh, well, I've kind of already committed 60% of myself to doing this anyways. So like, what's really holding me back? And then you start to see through those things. And I think that's been those two things have been the most helpful thing, because I'm not that like bold or fearless. I still like worry about a lot of stuff all the time. So it's not like I'm going to do this. But I also thought in the back of my head, like if I look back and told myself this story, like, for both of you, example, like you're now going to San Jose to train with like guys that really push you in for jiu-jitsu. You fucking moved to Ohio to go with some crazy crackpot Louis Simmons. But like the example of like, I could either be the big fish in my pond because I own the house. I had my friend group that all looked up to me. I had my, all of them. Yeah, I'm talking to you. And then I had my gym where it was my gym with my equipment and my clients. And I was the guy. And I was like, you know what? I've reached the peak of being my guy in the space. And it's like, if there's anything left, it's going to happen with a change. And I lived in North Carolina for 28 years, and I was like, well, you know what? Whatever. Let's see what happens. Because the worst case, you can always move back with mom and dad, and mom still love me, even if I was gay, which I'm straight for the end of this year at least. Yeah, I'll figure it out next year. Yeah. But that's the point. So, but I think that's a helpful, realistic thing for most people thinking about making decisions. It's never as bad as it is, but the people who make decisions that are scary and bold, a lot of times it happens because things broke and cracked their version of life that they thought would happen, and then they kind of make small commitments, and they make it it makes it so much easier to move. Like, by the time I moved over here, I had more friends here, and I didn't have many friends anyways. I just worked out and did this stuff, but I had more friends here and more of a life here, so it's it makes it really easy. But you can kind of do that, and so if you're not ready to, same in jiu-jitsu, if you're really scared, figure out what it is you're scared about. If you're scared of lifting weight, if you're scared of going to jiu-jitsu, figure out what it is that you're scared about, and then find 10% of that and start there. And eventually, after doing 10% and 20% seems easier, and you can kind of build your way up to wow, I've gotten 60% of the thing I was scared of. So the soft commitments allow me to just make that hard commitment. And then eventually, you're packing up your car, driving through Texas.
What are things that have worked well for you? Especially when it comes to running, we've had David Weck here, we've had the Goda guys here, we've had a bunch of different people. You've gotten a lot of great information from Ben Patrick, and
absolutely.
What are some things that have stuck? What are things that are you tried them and it seems like they're having a pretty good outcome and you're keeping them around?
So the first one I have to say is sleep. There is the biggest difference in my performance. As much as I want to say the perfect training, all this stuff, it's if I don't sleep, I'm a baby. That was the thing before Monday, daylight savings time. I got 4 hours of sleep because I was up thinking about running the whole night. It was went to bed at 4 a.m., had to get up at 8, and it's but that's just as a bottom line. And then nutrition. I think sleep and nutrition are this is the thing. It's crazy that there's so much talk about nutrition. It should be so simple. I mean, 2,000 years ago, there wasn't any word. Just whatever was there,
just
you ate.
Pause just for a second. Your feet hurt because you're probably pretty heavy.
In
a lot of cases, for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and your diet right.
You can't touch your toes. You can't sit on the ground. It's but the hard part is that things like the air you breathe, the light you're exposed to, the sleep you get, and the food you eat should be so basic that they should be zero thought. Well, other than attaining food, it's food, air. We shouldn't have to worry if the air is polluted or if the water's clean. Unfortunately, it is. That takes a lot of time and bandwidth. So once you kind of set in place of I have a water filter, I have air filter, I have a consistent food, I have connection with people, and I sleep well. That right there will set up 90% of everything else. But from a training perspective, that was one of the things I was really blessed with is and I still am this way now. You get the right person to training. I visited Joel Seidman. I've worked with Joel Seidman, Ben Patrick, the Goda guys, David Weck. I'm going to miss 15 people, the Human Garage people. Every one of those people has something that's, if someone has, I would say, I can't speak everybody, but I would say 95% of the time, everybody that's met this has a large following, there's some really meaningful piece of truth that they have that is oh, yeah, that's really good. Hard part is when you get a business incentive behind it. Now you have to say this is the only thing, and you trash other people. Then it's not as valuable. But from Joel Seidman, for example, starting to understand that there's different ranges you want to load heavy. So going to the box squat, stuff like that. The box squat is just a valuable piece, but it's getting a 90-degree angle. That was super valuable for starting to load my body and maintain the strength and this spinal loading, so to speak, without necessarily putting the joint through an unnecessary range of motion. Ben Patrick starting to look at that full range of motion and restoring that. Kador Ziani, the physical embodiment of relaxation. Human Garage people talking about fashion, starting to understand this, I
really like that concept of kind of grabbing and twisting the skin.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And then you start to, that's been the most, I'm open to a lot of, I don't really voice a lot of these things, but I'm open to a lot of really weird beliefs. And this is coming from a very Southern Methodist Baptist Orthodox, very strict, this is right, this is wrong. That was me, 10 years ago. And now it's my trauma stored in my big toe. It's the stars are aligning.
Trauma stored in my big toe.
Here's the thing. As a Taurus, I don't know if my meridian lines. I don't know. Apparently it goes through your spleen. What's the thing under your rib? Your spleen as well as your.
Is that why it hurts so bad when you stub your toe?
Oh yeah.
All that trauma's there.
Yeah, so I have my fear in my left shoulder, but so this is the thing. As a Taurus, apparently, the meridian lines that go around the rectus, the biceps femoris, and the outside of the leg, the lateral component of that, as well as your spleen. all I know is that when I massage them, they're really stiff and tight, and it happens to be the Taurus. I have no idea whatsoever, and I have no claim. I could never make that. But
yeah, Human Garage are big on horoscope stuff in accordance to certain things.
And who knows? I don't. This is the thing. I have no idea. I cannot prove it right or wrong. I just know it's some things from every single one of these people have been valuable. And I will say, with
by the way,
Human
for
Garage,
everyone that's into it, Mark's a Sagittarius, Andrew's an Aries, Graham's a Taurus, and I'm a Virgo. So go look that up. Yay!
But like, I will say, as I've done these fascial maneuvers, which is this twisting, like grabbing, and just exploring your body, anytime I find a stiff point, it is always correlated with some limiting belief or challenging decision or has something I have to do. And most of the biggest changes in my mindset and thinking have started after doing that stuff. I can't say more to the veracity of anything. I just know from a lived experience, it has just been done wonders for me. And I'm also got to the point where, like, whatever, I'm open. Like, I will try whatever. And I mean whatever, at least once.
I joke around, but like you said, Human Garage has a lot of really cool stuff, and I think a really cool thing is that their whole program is free.
I
It's
know.
like they're not charging people for it. Like, they take donations, they sell certain supplements, but if you want to learn about their fascial maneuvers, you go to their page, you click a link, and then you'll have access to everything.
Yeah.
They give it to you.
So
Some of their principles are so simple too.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff
Yeah.
with just breathing and twisting.
Yeah.
You know, you sit down in a chair and you go to twist and you can only move so much. Then you work on your breathing. You can move more and more and more.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
And then, you know, David Weck and Chris Chamberlain. Chris Chamberlain might be one of the smartest guys. He's like Dr. I just imagine
Eroding Weakness on Instagram. Check him out.
when he talks about things, I just imagine Dr. Strange like casts spells and has all these like weird things going around. And I just look at Chris Chamberlain and he's talking about like you're steering in a rotation. I'm just thinking in his head, he's like, and I'm like, what? But like between them and the Goda guys and like, I mean, who else? Les Spellman, like it's phenomenal trio. Like, it's just
Kelly Starrett.
Kelly Starrett.
Starrett.
Oh my God. Like this is the thing I feel ashamed trying to list this, but like the people I've gotten to meet and learn from, it's just, so there's two parts of that, which I think are valuable is one, like I think really what matters is like so for example, you go try the Human Garage thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
if we make a list of like Graham's sayings, there's one thing. There's two parts that I think are really valuable to that. There's two parts. That should be like a counter to how he's
Flying out of his big toe.
well, see, it serves two purposes. One of which is that there's two parts of why I do the two parts. One of which is I get to say something, but I've also reserved the fact that I can say it again so that even if I'm wrong, I've got it verbal jiu-jitsu down so that you forgot what I said in the first place. I'm telling you, I'm black belt with 3 stripes, baby. The point
We're
is,
gonna title the episode that. There's 2 parts.
the first part is there's the value of all these things. But the second part is the belief really matters. Like when I have met these people, the most consistent thing about every single one, from Joel Seaman to the Wet guys, people that like, it's the equivalent of like a carnivore and a vegan. They fucking believe that the stuff they do works. And I have, from a coaching perspective, seeing Joel Seaman work with some of his athletes, oh yeah, that was fun. Of course, he goes, for your father, this passion. And who knows? Like, I have a poor memory, so there's probably some trauma in there. But, like that, after I felt like a new person after that whole weekend with them. And there's something about that. It's, being held by a grown man was something swell. But like, I can't, this is the thing.
Rocking you like a baby.
I can't convince you that does anything.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I relinquished myself and submitted to the fact that I'm open for whatever. And that's the thing, like, for example, going to see people that go work with Joel Seaman. That man cares. I have, like, he could have told me to jump through the roof on him, like, yeah, because he's like, good. All right, hold this. And Ben Patrick, the people that are the most profound in terms of the voices they do, they believe so strongly. And there's, like, definitely an interesting component that I think people are latching onto the fact that someone else believes about something. People like go through life and they struggle to find meaning or any type, and they find someone else that holds on to something like, I don't know whether you're saying anything is real or not, but you believe it so strong, like you believe with the conviction I could one day hope to possibly have. And I think that's like a Ben Patrick, the people that are really there, that people really follow, it's like there's something about like their stone wall, their walls, they are really hold that. And so, when you do this, it doesn't necessarily, I think the value is like, the belief can also be a trap because it can also get you stuck in like, I only do this stuff.
That's the big thing. And that's why I like, first off, I like the way you think about this because you're doing a lot of the same things we do, but you're also just going out and training with those people. But for example, the Seidman thing. There's a lot of good to what Seidman's doing, and he believes it. But then you go and you train with Ben Patrick, and Ben believes in a lot of stuff he's doing, but Seidman would be like, no, that's messed up because of this, right? But no, we can see where a lot of Ben Patrick stuff is really fucking beneficial, along with Human Garage, right? People look at some of this stuff and they'll take an initial look and be like, no, that's bullshit, right? And you don't allow yourself to see how beneficial this can be for your body.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool that's a really cool aspect of what you're doing. Like you can see where all of these things are really fucking beneficial, but it's not good to let yourself get trapped by believing it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is you realize that like it's everybody else is just a human like you. So there's some part where like no one knows the full thing, so to speak. But you look at like, you know, the go-to guys would say Patrick and Seidman are both wrong because they're not teaching the coiling process. So like that's not wrong either. That's pretty true. You know, and you look at David Wack, the head of, and Chris Chamberlain, the head of our toe balance in this coiling, which is Landmine University. Like the people are talking about that. So it's like, you think of each of these as like they're like, you know, there's the story, there's Hindu story, like, you know, no one knows the truth because everyone's holding a different part of the elephant. Someone thinks it's a snake, someone thinks it's like a tree trunk, someone thinks it's like a wall because they're all touching different parts. And the moral of the story is like no one can know what it is. It's like, well, someone does because someone's looking and seeing that they're all people holding an elephant. They're blind men holding an elephant is the essence of the story. And so because each one has a different part of such a large structure, they think they have truth. But because they all don't realize that the bigger picture, they say, oh, no one can know truth. But like the point of the story is being told from someone who can see it. Therefore, it kind of is a, you know, moot point. But within that, it's like if you're open to look at these pieces, and I think of each one as a framework, it's like it costs you two things. It can either cost you time or money. You can either go and spend time like learning it yourself and try and practice and like hopefully kind of figure things out, or do what I did, buy a plane ticket. You know, provide value for something. And it gets easier as you have some level of social media stuff. But like I show up and I still like, I'm here, I'm doing whatever. Like I 100% submit to the process. And it's like, I'm going to learn. I'm going to like, that's a hard thing for me to shut up and just not talk. If I don't have my own podcast, I just talk in other people's, but like within that, it's like, if you go and you're willing to just spend time and spend money and time, like put it together, like I'm going to go and like pay you for your time to honor the fact that you're giving me energy. And then I'm going to like, trust, be open enough to see what happens without having to hold on to the outcome. Like that's been really valuable. So that of all those things, like I've learned so much. And that's the hard part now is that like I have a lot of things that I'm like, I feel less prepared to be a personal trainer than at any other point. Like I feel less qualified to, if someone who comes in and walks in, like I used to like, you know, been doing it for 10 years, you walk in like, I'm going to be the best one you've ever had. It's going to be great. 10 seconds, you know, it's like, you go through that. It's like, you think it's going to be I got that. You think it's going to be a great, like, I'm going to be able to fix your problems. We're going to, your weight is this. And I'll tell you all the answers, tell you how things are going to be. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but we're going to let's go. I'll show you some of the things and that make me feel good. And it's like, you know, and hopefully I can get you to like tap into some of the wonder and curiosity about your body and then get you started on that. But it's like, I can't do it for you. And I think that's the hard part. It's very humiliating because most personal trainers, the best thing they're going to do is like give someone hope and encouragement. And the worst thing you do is give someone a bunch of rules that they have to follow. Because that's like, you get them to believe in themselves again, but it's a very hard thing to get someone to believe in themselves without then like transferring that belief to you. It's like, I don't, you know, if someone comes in and work with Nsima, it's like, I don't want you to, they start because they believe in you, but you want to get them to transfer that belief into themselves and say, yeah, like I learned the things and now I can go do it. And that's very hard to do. And I think, you know, anytime an industry is set up with an incentive that is propagated by the continuing of the relationship, whether therapy or personal training or whatever it is, like, you know, physical therapy. And again, it can be
Big
done.
pharma.
It can be done with the most noble things ever. But if you go and someone like, all right, well, this is kind of a lifetime thing, and I'm not empowering you to go do this yourself, very hard. But that's like a very alien human incentive. Like, I'm going to take the thing that's giving me money that allows me to have food and shelter, and I'm going to say, I'm going to stop this willingly at a certain point because it's in your best interest. That's very hard to do. And I think that's the hard underlying that incentive of most coaching and most life coaching growth is like, you go from something which is a tangible, I need to lose 10 pounds. And then you say, yeah, but you need to also grow and be a spiritual individual. And like, you become to make this thing less tangible and more elusive and never like, there's never a finite point. And that's a hard thing. And so as I've let go of this, I need to have the answers because I have to definitively be able to tell you why you should come back and pay me.
As you've let go of the
small paradigm within which I see things like health, nutrition, exercise, whatever it is, the answers to the problems you have.
Okay.
So if you let's just say, I don't know, whatever it is, any number of these books or whatever, like I have the answer to the problem you have, which is the only reason you're talking to me to begin with, because if you were fully happy, you would A, use language to talk, and B, you wouldn't be interested in me because I would have for me to interact with you, you have something that I want, which is something I either want to esteem after. Like, for example, if I were to, the people you talk to, you have something in common at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
If the only reason I'm talking to a real estate agent, I'm not talking to him right now because I'm not looking for a house. But like, if I were, then all of a sudden I'm interested in that. I solve that. Well, now I should, figure out taxes, and you go through these phases. But it's all someone has something to offer you, and that's the hard part. Is like in that relationship, we have status, we have identity built in, and it's like we have to have the answer. Because if I go to say, what housing market should I go invest in? I don't know. They're all pretty good. You're like, that's immediately. So we're gravitating to the person. And this is the belief thing. We gravitate to the people who are most convicted in telling us the answers. And that answers have to have an endpoint. Because if I say, I've got one point on the spectrum that goes forever, you're like, it takes a really open person to be able to sit, which I think you two have manifested, or you three have manifested the skill of like, you have people come in and you're easily able to pick from the tree and put it in there, knowing that there's no endpoints to this thing. It just continues to go, but you're just creating a prettier rainbow in a sense. It's like, most people are like, nope, red's the only color there is. And not even those shades of red, this red. 38B6FF, that's my favorite blue. But like, that's the thing. And so in order for me to promote certainty, I have to limit the options. And then that's tough because it's like that does not let you open your mindset. And so then you're very shut down to things. And then it's like your body reflects that. It's like, I'm not going to do that. And so then it's interesting, which is why
38B6FF really is that color blue. That is your favorite color blue?
On my free time, I build my online business. And a lot of the things you go through all these pieces. I love it.
Smart.
There it is.
But like in that,
That's a deep cut, bro. That's why I was like, did you just throw that?
So that's where I look at people that really are able to manage. So this is, Mark said this is one of our, a while ago, but it's like the dinner table. Like, how is someone at their dinner table? It's not, can you go and do this specific thing? Can you go and like put it together for one aspect? Like, what do you look like as a deep multidimensional purpose? And I think that's really valuable. Is like someone like Kador, like when I can see, and there's something about, you can study and listen and learn. Like, this is amazing. People go buy books all the time. Just go listen to the last 5 podcasts I did. You're going to learn what they're thinking, how they're thinking, and the way they word it. It's unbelievable how much you can learn. Once you've done that, then buy the book and see if, like a codified way that they've put it out there. And then it's like, pay them for a coaching hour. Go visit them. Do something to provide value for them. But like,
also start truly applying certain concepts that you hear.
Yes, exactly.
I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of listening to certain things, and then we're like, that's cool, but then there's a lack of taking action on those things that you heard, or a lack of taking action consistently. Because, you might do some of these postures, right, that Kador talks about from one day, you're like, oh, this is great, it hurts, blah, 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 it's working. And then you fall off of it for like 3 months, right? But you'll see the benefit of that type of thing when you put it into a habit of something you do at least once a day or a little bit each day.
When that's, and we could go on for forever, but one thing I think is valuable to bring is like the pain of change in a sense is like, if your body is stiff to the point that, let's say your big toe, for example, or where all my trauma stored, is held in a position based off the stiffness of the residual or the close tissue in proximity, meaning like my big toe is the way it is because of the way it is, like simply put. So for me to change that, I have to not only change the text, like the stimulus I put on my big toe, but also the way I sit, the way I move. And there will be pain because that pain is involved in change. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily mean injury. People like, pain is this contracting stimulus. It is there's pain and numbness. And this is kind of like, it's not pain and pleasure. It's pain and numbness. Pain is any stimulus. Pleasure could be a form of pain. But by pain, I don't mean like there's pain and owie that hurts, but anything that grabs your attention. Like if something feels good enough, you're like, ooh, I like that. Like that's a pain because it just grabbed you. And the opposite of pain is numbness. And so people think, oh, I just don't want pain anymore. It's like, well, you don't want any sensation. You don't want any stimulus. So I have to do something that causes a stimulus in my body that causes a change. And so that is going to cause an uncomfort, a discomfort, because I'm not in my comfort zone. And so I think that's the hard part is like, as you go through this stuff, you can become a pain junkie and start to really go into that, and you can ignore all the pain too. But it's like, there's a part of it, if you make the change, listen to it, but you also have to like put it in there and be patient. This is where systems or like social support or something comes in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. One note about like, what you mentioned about, because you've mentioned Goggins a few times, right? We've talked about him a little bit, and he has his like, he has his knee stuff and some of the pain that he's dealing with and walks around with on a daily basis. But I think the way that he deals with pain is something that we can all learn from and probably use a little bit. Like I noticed that when something happens in my ankle or my back or whatever, instead of starting to avoid that, I kind of lean into it a little bit and see what can I manage? How bad is this really? And you notice when you warm up a little bit, it's not nearly as bad. And then over time it goes away rather than totally shying away from it. Now, I'm not saying that every time that we have pain or something that bothers us, we need to just dive in and like run through it like Goggins does. But Goggins is a testament to how well the human being can deal with certain levels of potentially debilitating pain for other people. The way Goggins' body feels probably would have some people literally just sitting in a couch or in a wheelchair. But because of the way his mind probably deals with that pain, he can deal with it, which shows that we can all, if we have a level of pain, there's probably a benefit in us, instead of running away from it, leaning into it a little bit.
Yeah, there's a reason why you produce dopamine when you move.
Yeah.
You know, and when you go on a run, I know people that run have experienced this many times. You go run and sometimes you're like, what the hell? My ankle is like really jacked up. And then you stop and you walk for a minute and then you jog lightly again. And then you're like, this is really strange. Maybe I can't train today. 3 minutes later, you're running just fine and it doesn't hurt at all.
But the thing
You
is,
like
Goggins,
ran it off. You walked it off.
But that's, so the thing with Goggins, he's like an archetype for an extreme. But I think also the pain of him dealing with his knee, like the pain of the alternative of not running is far outweighs the pain of his knee. Like, meaning the inner demons, like the fear of like who he'll become if he stops running and gives in, like the inner bitch, as he says, like that's terrifying to him. More so than dealing with debilitating knee pain. And like, I don't know if that ever changes, but I think like he can continue to say, I will never, ever, 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 ever go back to this thing. So it doesn't matter if my knee's not even attached to my body. So like, that's another part too. But like, I think pain is an invitation to explore. It's sensation. And so when you defang it with that, you give your body a whole lot of opportunity. I think that's incredibly valuable.
Power Project family, if you're trying to increase your muscle mass, if you're trying to lose body fat, if you're trying to stick to your nutrition plan, if you're trying to get fit, pretty much if there's anything you're trying to do for your health, we know that sleep is the biggest determining factor to help you get from point A to point B. That's why we've been sleeping on 8 Sleep mattresses for probably more than 2 years now. And the main reason is the technology behind the Pod Pro. Now, the Pod Pro is like the Tesla of beds. It will change its temperature based off of how you're sleeping during the night. And if you have a partner that's sleeping on the other side, they can have their own temperature settings. We all sleep hot here, and I used to wake up in a puddle of my own sweat.
Gross.
That doesn't happen anymore because of the 8 Sleep mattress, and I've been getting the best sleep of my life. Now, if you don't want to replace your mattress, you can just get the Pod Pro cover, and you can put that over your current mattress to get all the benefits of 8 Sleep. But if you also need to replace your old nasty mattress, you can get the Pod Pro cover and the 8 Sleep mattress. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject, and you guys will automatically receive $150 off of your order. Again, 8sleep.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Give us, on the way out of here, give us 3 shoes, because I know it's hard to just recommend one.
Well, for what context?
Give us 3 shoes just for, I don't know, people that might have some discomfort in their feet and just maybe their knees or back are bothering them and they haven't really looked into getting shoes other than like Nike and Reebok and all that stuff.
All right. If I may, I'm going to do 3 categories. One for cleats, because I just did a whole big deep dive on cleats, and like that's really valuable. One on like everyday and one on like performance. So for cleats, I think it's we'll do yours first. The everyday going around. The best shoe I could recommend to start as a transition, if let's say you're in a there's 4 components of a good shoe. There's flat, meaning the heel and toe are on the same level. There's wide, meaning the toe box is wide enough, and there's a difference and distinction to be made between wide and foot shaped. Wide shoe, like the Brannick device is the thing that measures the foot. It just goes from the heel to the longest point, and it goes from across the metatarsals on the widest point. But you can just kind of make any adjustment and cut off like the big toe or the pinky toe in that. So a foot shaped is one that's a little bit more loopy or like around, which ironically in the original last of people that make shoes that come to a point are literally done to signal wealth, because if you had a shoe that was shaped like your foot, it'd signal you're poor. So it's ironic. The only reason people don't have it, I think that switching is reverse signaling now. But so there's flat, there's wide or foot shaped. There's flexible, meaning the foot can bend. The shoe can bend and allow your foot to get normal stimulus. And then there's thin on the bottom. That's the least important part, because I think that this is where some of the stuff, like people get very masochistic. I want to feel the ground. It's like, well, the second you have something in between your skin, you're not feeling the ground. You're not getting, if I wear like one of those work gloves, right? There's like the
Right.
tight, the tight fitting ones that like let me grip. That's good, but I'm not feeling the thing it is. I still have to take them off to use my phone, for example. So there was a loss of sensory proprioception the second I take anything in between that. So the thinness is probably the least important of those pieces. So if you're in a place where you're stuck and you're stiff and you just want to get healthier feet, don't worry about jumping in this thinness. But if you get the wide, the flat, thin, or the flat, wide, and flexible, an Ultra Solstice Escalante, or those are two different variables, are going to be my favorite option for that because they're foot shaped, they're flexible, they got some padding, about 22 to 24 millimeters.
Say that again.
Stacked.
Ultras, the Escalantes, or the Solstice.
Yeah, it's the Solstice XT or the Racer, and then there's the Ultra, the Escalante 2.5 or whatever it is. Those are a few options in there, but anything from Ultra is good. The Lone Peak for that stuff. And I just say that as a general shoe for like walking around and moving, and just having some padding and stuff like that. There's other companies. I mean, I'm a big Vibram 5-finger toe guy. Like that's been my ultimate thing. But you're still on the ground. Like you have to realize that the ground ain't soft, and you have to be willing to do that. So that's the thing with Zero and Vivo and all these other shoes. Like if it's real thin, you just got to be willing to feel the ground. And sometimes, as Mark said, it's like it's nice to have a little bit of cushion, especially if you're standing on your feet. Those are things like Vivo, for example, like. There's different variations of Vivos that like this has got a thicker
those are the
tread on the
Primus
bottom.
trails.
Yeah, so like you can get something like that. It's still flexible. Me and this thing, it's still flexible, but the padding underneath can be a little more. It's not support. That's the thing under people like, dude, it's not support. It's just a little bit of softness. It just gets you, it's just get you a little bit of space to kind of sink into the ground or something.
Do you like the scent right there? I use it barefoot.
You know what? It smells like 99% Nigerian. Purebred.
I take offense to that. No, I'm joking. I am purebred. Thank you very much.
We don't know what
1% is
1%
99.99.
99.9%.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a 0.9. That's weird.
Yep.
So these are going to be good. But honestly, like I just tell everybody, go to the Ultra Solstice. And at that point, if you want to do something, like I think the ultimate gym shoe is a Vibram 5-finger because it is like a work glove for your foot. Like you literally grab the ground, you can get all those toes moving. So in that context, it's really what you're doing. I know Icarus has a great, everyday shoe that looks decent. There's a lot of those companies, but in general, once you have that principle there, anything you throw in there as an alternative?
No, I think what you mentioned is great. The Vibrams are a great option too for some people that want to get more into it and
that's my go-to.
Maybe get better capacity with their feet. Yeah. But I also think, for people that have pain, it'd be great for them to explore, just identify the fact that your feet probably don't ever really touch the actual ground.
Yeah, which needs to happen, but that's a separate conversation.
And try to get some exposure to it here and there.
And so from that point, the running side is I think like a lighter Ultra, I think those are going to be good for hard surfaces, long distance, like mid to long distances on built ground. But when you look at, this is the thing too, there's a competition versus a training shoe. So you look at a carbon fiber plate shoe, you might think, oh, that's crazy. But in some context, if you're going to run the Boston Marathon on pavement, it's like, well, I'm going to go and do an unnatural thing on an unnatural surface and for an unnatural reason. It's like, this is the thing. It doesn't mean that you can't do it barefoot. You can't, you can do all these things. But the question is, do you have the training, the time? Does your tissue deserve that to be able to go do that? Have you earned the right to do that? And do you have the interest to do it? So, it's I think people get dogmatic. You have to do this. It's if you want to go run, the super shoes are called super shoes for a reason. I've tried those things on. It's silly how much they literally just do the running for you.
I want to quickly note what you said right there is super important. Have you earned the right to do this? For example, the amount of mileage that you're currently running. I remember when I've tried to do certain things, especially in barefoot shoes last year or the year before that, I didn't earn the right to do it. My feet were feeling really beat up. I needed to, I needed to train my feet a bit more and have them get stronger to earn the right to do more mileage or do more things with barefoot shoes on. So this shit takes time is pretty much what that means.
Yeah, jump roping barefoot could be a much better, jumping roping barefoot on turf or on grass is a phenomenal way to do it. No one ever thinks about that. Well, a lot of people do, but I don't know, it's not popular because it's not a product. Notice that everything anyone tries to sell you is always a product. I always buy my thing. It's of course. But jump roping or bouncing, you don't have to jump rope. You can just bounce in place and just do that for 20 or 5 minutes a day, or as Matt Troy did 2,000 a day. I wouldn't do 2,000 a day for a month, but do something like that, for an extended period of time is great. So that's a big piece. Because, for example, I had my 5 fingers on. I was doing hill sprints up this paved asphalt hill. I stepped on a rock. I'm sprinting and boom, right in that. I had a lump in that Morton's neuroma area for a month, and it hurt. I'm not going to be up here and say it didn't hurt. I cried. I was like, it hurt so bad. And then, eventually I got tougher in Jiu Jitsu and it kind of hurts. But the point is that these things hurt. And if someone looks at you and says, if when you see me walk on gravel in those, it's still uncomfortable. It still doesn't feel great. Like it's, your feet don't get less sensitive. Like people that have been lifelong barefooters, they have thicker calluses, but they still feel it. You don't want to lose that sensation. But it's like, that's just having a relationship with the uncomfort, the discomfort is there. So from a training perspective, it really depends on your surface. If it makes sense in a competition, use a super shoe. You're not going to be in the world. Just take it off when you finish. Yeah. And then from a general training perspective, I think that barefoot running is a great way to do strength training. There's a reason I do it partly to I have to be the extreme in the sense to show it, but like running on a track or on a safe surface, like he's going to make your feet super strong and it makes you a better runner. Not because your feet are what are doing it, but because it's like there's so many things that when you run barefoot, you really hard to mess it up in a sense, especially if you like start to do it with some consistency. Yeah. But I think if you want to do this, like a trail, like having something that's a little lower to the ground, like that Vivo trail, the Vibrant 5 Fingers got like the V Run, V Track, V Alpha, V Aqua, a million different variations, or 20. But like those are going to be options. But it really depends on the surface. And I think Marcus has got a really good point with this. Is like treat shoes like technology in a sense. Like trade them in and out. If you have the opportunity, like your feet can do everything. So that's the important thing. It's like that's the true variable. You don't need to buy anything to do this. You just have to earn that and start way back if you want to use your feet for that. But if you have the time, the resources, you're interested, it's your hobby, have a few different tools in your bag. Like if you're going to be a gardener, you're going to have a hoe, you're going to have a rake, you're going to have a shovel. You're like, I want to make a hoe joke so badly. I don't want to ruin the quality. But the point is
we all thought it. We all thought it.
You thought it. So the point is that you can treat it like technology and have a few options. And then from the last part, the cleats, there is no way around it. Cleats increase your injury risk point blank. If you wear a cleat, you have a higher injury risk from loaded. The more traction, everything that makes your cleat more of a cleat increases the joint loading in the ankle and knee, increases the torque as you rotate, and it makes an unnatural relationship with your foot to the ground, period. Now, does that mean that, because they'll say it improves your performance and it reduces your injury from slipping and falling? Well, you're going to do, like, if I have a cleat, for example, if my car has better grip, I'm going to drive faster on a curve. So does that mean that my rate of injury is still the same? It's like, if I'm barefoot, it might change it. That being said, most sports are compulsory with cleats and people like the ability, they get used to it and it's how they do it. So like,
it's tough too. The cleat thing is tough because like so many sports, soccer, football, rugby, all these field sports, the cleat shape, it's just dominated those sports for such a long time that you wonder, is there a way to actually change that?
So that's there are companies now that are doing that, which is one of the things I'm excited about. But the idea is like these companies, 1920s, or 3rd century BC, the Romans were the first one with like a cleat, but like it wasn't until the 18th century that the King Henry had a sport made for shoe. Because you think about the luxury to have a sport for shoe. A shoe for sport. You think about the luxury it is to have a shoe for sport. You don't have that money until like the 1920s. You have the first specific like ballet shoes, ice hockey, like they're just for sport. And so now you have all these changes, things that are going, but it's like as thermoplastic, moldable, removable studs start to pick up, you have artificial turf, you have different surfaces, all kinds of things that have changed it. But the companies that make these cleats, Nike bought their lasts or the thing you form the shoe around from Asics. Asics bought it from Puma and Adidas. Adidas, which was formerly Gata, made their last in the 1920s based off the lasts that were made beforehand. And what are they making shoes for? Wealthy people who wanted to have shoes and who could afford it. And so how high the shoe came up on your calf, the color of the shoe, the material, the shape of it. Like we don't think chiral shoes, which are like they're not symmetrical, but they're mirrored. Didn't happen until the Romans created that. Like there's so many things that like you look at the shoes to lift off the ground, how high you get off the ground. It's all for status. It has nothing to do with performance. If you had shoes that looked like a foot, it meant you were poor. That's the crazy part. So it has nothing to do with function or performance. So our entire cleat industry, every soccer player, and this is probably the bone I'm going to have to pick for the next year, but every soccer player goes, no, I like a tight fit. You've never had another option.
It's like true.
It's like being in an abusive relationship and you're like, no, I like it when he hits me. It's like you've never been in a healthy relationship. No, I don't like chocolate ice cream. Well, you've never had vanilla. Like you've never even had, there's never been an option available until now.
Ice cream's good.
Well, if you've never had any other option, you think that like, what is the shaved ice? But the point is, this company's Code Footwear is now like they're the ones that they're expensive, but it's absolutely an investment if you're a professional athlete. Like these cleats would have run me. I'm doing testing with them, and I'm cute, but I got a pretty face, cute face and big face. Cute face, little waisted, big behind.
Keep show your phone screen real quick?
Oh, I don't have it with me.
Damn it, man.
We'll do it. But it's a picture of me looking very stern and masculine.
I'll use it for the thumbnail.
Yeah, please. That could be. Yeah.
Nah, you look too. Actually, maybe. I don't know. Let's see.
So
we get too many downloads. Like, I think we should use it.
You think it'll work? All right.
They would be anywhere from like $800 to $1,200 for these. But if you're a professional athlete and you're serious about your sport, it is the single best thing you could invest in, because these things feel like an extension of my body. My foot, they are literally molded to my exact foot, and they feel like my foot with a little. There's no crunching the toes. They're playing around with things like metatarsal pads and toe spacers to fill in the space, so you could still make shapes with your foot inside the shoe.
Yeah.
The thing is crazy. So I got these Nikes. I went and bought for this YouTube video, which is going to go deep dive on this stuff. The Nike Mercurials, 3.5 inches at the widest. 3.5. These shoes that are made for my foot, 4.5 inches. That is an inch. An entire inch that is lost. And so people don't think, they just think it's tight, but there's this doming that happens with your foot. So the metatarsals squeeze and press up. That means my arch can't collapse. My foot can't spread. My toes get smashed in. My literal bones can only be compressed in, so they lift up. And so I'm no longer able to hit the ground. So I'm running around. That'd be like trying to punch and like do things like this with my hands.
Your foot expands a lot when you hit the ground. Oh my gosh.
And that's the rotation. So when you step, normally the foot would twist and rotate, but it gets stuck. So all that torque is put on the knee and the hip, and you start pushing off the inside of the foot as opposed to lifting off the middle of the foot.
Go to code. Yeah,
it's
CODE_FTWR on Instagram.
So they're now at the point where they've got, and the thing that's cool is that like because they literally, I went up and visited them. They have 3D printers just running. It's a crazy story. It's really cool. But every single shoe they make, they learn something new. Like they can talk what are your surfaces, but they can continue. They can make prototypes. Not like any other company where Nike they have to make 200,000 of these shoes, and you have different SKUs, different colors, and that's the thing is you think, why are there no inventions on cleats? Because it's costly.
Is code FTW?
FTWR,
Okay,
like
just
footwear.
making sure.
And an underscore.
If you think about the risk a company would have to take because in the 60s and 70s, they had this turntable. So it was a little resisted wheel that allowed you to like press on the ground, but it kind of twisted the shoe underneath you. It was a little round table. I think, well, why don't they make that? Because they did studies and it took 15% of all athletes that were wearing regular cleats in the study got injured, and 5%. So it's a 200% injury decrease. Why don't they make that? Well, you think of a company, they didn't have the technology, and also, are they going to invest this much money into a cleat that doesn't sell because it's scary and different?
I wouldn't have had to have foot surgery if something like Code Footwear existed. Because my cleats, I played soccer for 15 years, and every single cleat I got just pushed my toes in and caused me to.
So bad.
Exactly. That's what caused my surgery. So it's just like first, like I get this is fucking expensive, $800 to $1,200.
Well, the Nikes are like $300 too.
I mean, but like even good Nike cleats are like $150, $200. I mean, you can get $300 Nike cleats, but you can get very good cleats for like an eighth of the Code Footwear price. But the thing is like this kind of thing can save an athlete's foot.
Yeah, it would have prolonged Patrick Willis's career.
And they're making, the cool thing is they do that and they also do basketball shoes. And so like once they have the model for your shoe, they could do everything else. But like KD rolling his ankle because his shoes are too stiff. But you realize like the product of a shoe, and these are interesting, they're expensive, but you pay for the quality. It's hand cobbled. They literally build it themselves at this point. So it's like,
it's cool that they're making basketball shoes and all these other shoes too.
It looks good.
All this shit looks pretty dope.
That's big. So the looking good is a big part because the guy worked at Nike and he worked for Jordan. Like, there's an aesthetic about it. That's the biggest thing. People are like, oh, we want functional feet. No one cares about how you wiggle your toes. They want it to look good. They want it, like, there's an aesthetic that matters. And I think that gets lost in most of the stuff.
Dude.
So, like, it needs to look good. The point is, you'll see more of this stuff taking off. And now that it's a lower cost to market, you're going to see shoes like you could theoretically take a Vivo or a Vibram and, like, put the sensors underneath. So, like, Nature Athletics, NATUR Athletics, they're starting to make, like, they have cleats in production working on this stuff. And they are great options for kids. But that's cute. So like the thing is that you're going to start to see a change in the market, but it's going to take time for athletes that are at risk of losing their whole career because, they just can't have another injury. It's going to start to change that, like the function. But, the tough thing is like for most young athletes, they're not looking at like how they go. I went shopping in this shoe store nearby, soccer cleat store, and I'm talking to the guy, like, he's like, oh, yeah, like, they do this. I'm asking, like, what have you ever thought about, like, these things? Like, these people that sell us shoes, you go to a running shoe store, you think you're talking, this is like going to a car and expecting the car salesman is a mechanic or an expert about the car. They just know some facts about the car, and they probably have never even driven it in most cases. Like, and maybe in a car, there's only like 8 models or brands, but it's like we ask them, we want to be guided through the shopping process because we're scared, because we're spending money and it's an expenditure of our energy. And so we go say, there's like 15 different cleat options, and like I kind of like Nike, so I'm going to go look at those. Which are the options? the person is just someone that sells shoes.
Yeah.
And we don't think they know nothing about foot mechanics, and they've been told a lie. There was this YouTube video. I was doing this research. I'm sorry, I get a little passionate about this, but this guy goes, "You do not have wide toe box shoes." He's a guy who makes soccer review videos, and he was saying that he had worked at a shoe store, measured people every time. It's like, yeah, every single time people say, "I need a wide toe box cleat. I can't figure out something that works." And you go, well, they always fit in the shoes. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you can squeeze a little foot in there. It matters if that thing is completely neutering your foot. But we trust these department stores that go in. They're going to tell us what the right thing is. They have no idea. They're just glorified salespeople. And I don't want to sound pejorative towards that, but we offload our common senses and say, is it comfortable? There's more than that. And it's like, you go to these Nikes, my feet were, I tried them on to wear them so I could really be honest about the feedback. It's like, it was crazy. Like, my foot was aching. So, like, you could go down that. But from a cleat perspective, if you are at all serious about what you're doing, Code Footwear, you cannot beat that, because it is literally for your foot. And once they have it, then they can make everything. They can make custom toe spacers. The metatarsal pads are really interesting, because you can take the hard, firm bottom of a cleat, which doesn't matter how good it is, it's still a firm bottom that's always there. So if I step this way and I go and turn, internally rotate the turn and like pivot, instead of my foot being able to sink into the ground, that hard plastic isn't moving. So it's stuck. And now my foot is everted and rotating out, putting all that pressure into the lateral components of the ankle. So meaning I want to push and go inside, move immediately, but my ankle is being pushed outside, especially if that's not if I'm slipping or step on someone's ankle. That's a recipe for a sprain right there. That's the nature of the plastic bottom of the cleat. So there's only so much you can do there, which is why like cleats unfortunately are there. But if it's part of your sport and you're a professional athlete, I cannot recommend enough. Just buy them once. They've lasted. I've put them through some tests and they're great. That being said, from a reasonable thing for kids and nature athletics, and there will be other they're still in the beta protection, so they like have to buy the last piece by piece, and so like it's not 100% available right now. But there will be companies that start to do this and say, "Oh yeah, it ain't going to be Nike and it ain't going to be Adidas." And past that, from a immediate thing, New Balance is my absolute favorite conventional cleat company, because they offer consistent wide toe box shoes. Now that means specifically it's 1/2 inch wider. So go from a size D to a 2E, the width is a 1/2. It makes all the difference in the world. I'm telling you, it's still not foot shaped, so your pinky toes are still going to get curled. But if you get shoes, maybe you size up half a size and get the New Balance consistently offers a wide toe box, which I think is phenomenal. Like if you're going to buy conventional cleats, they've soccer, like they have all the different ones. Go New Balance. So those are going to be huge, and it is. When you're performing at the highest quality, that's like saying if you're a race car driver, yeah, I know the tires are a little slippery, but we didn't want to invest in the water tires. It's like, what? So you crash your car? It's like the cost of these things is your career or surgery. It ain't fun. So, but it really, 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 really matters what you do with that. So
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Alrighty. Really quick though, I don't know if you guys have seen this. When you were talking about the color picker thing, I don't know if you guys did. If you saw this, I don't have to say anything, but
I don't know this.
So it's just a chick on TikTok doing dumb TikTok shit. I don't, it's TikTok or whatever.
My TikTok does not look like this at all, man.
So somebody responds, "It's definitely FF94A4." It's like, what? And it's
the hex code.
Hex code for pink, talking about her vagina color. And I thought that was funny.
That's like 3 levels deep. How long have you been singing? Like, he just checked out the podcast like an hour and a half ago. He's like, I got a joke.
No. I was like, dude, I was like, what the fuck? So I was trying to figure out how the fuck do I even search for that? And then I think I just typed in hex code pink vagina. and it came up on Know Your Meme. And that's how I was able to find it.
Are they all the same color though? I would think that there'd be variation.
No, yeah, but it's just, that's like the meme now is you lay out that hex code and everyone's like, he's talking about her color.
You know what's worse is that I've been referring to this for so long that it's going to come full circle and people are going to think I'm dog whistling about something like 5 years ago and they're like some blue, it's going to be like lit for like white supremacy or something. Like,
oh no,
I was here first, man.
I see what you mean.
Like the okay sign or whatever. Like that guy.
Did you watch that documentary?
Which one?
It's on Netflix right now. I forgot. Oh,
like
no,
QAnon thing or something?
It's not Netflix. It's HBO. It's about like cancel culture. And there was this Mexican guy who was canceled in 2020 because someone took a picture of him. Do you remember? Like he had his hand out his window and he was just like this. Because he just has a tick where he goes like this with his hands. Mexican man. He goes like this with his hand. And somebody took a fucking picture of this dude with canceled. Like this. Yeah. And apparently this right here is like a white supremacy group sign thing. They took a picture of this guy in his work truck. It got posted on social media. Again, this man is Mexican, but he kind of looks kind of white, but he's Mexican. He gets fired from his job. People online are calling him a racist, and he can't get a job for a while because people think he's some white supremacist. But he's like, I'm Mexican, and I have a fucking tick with my hand where I go like this. Oh. It was so fucked up. I hope HBO, there's a cancer documentary,
We'll
but
figure
that's
it out.
crazy.
All right. Make sure you guys head over to powerproject.live for everything podcast related. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project all over the place. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where you at?
Discord's down below, guys. Let us know if you're going to start jiu-jitsu. At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mr. Barefoot Sprinter, where can people find you?
At the Barefoot Sprinter. I think I got it on YouTube now too. It's YouTube, Instagram, and then those would be good.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Catch you guys later.